take pride in satisfying every customer's financial needs.
Ngalo na lawa to kuma ta baki asira linga da fo ko nyi founding kila
hey elafta maboro la bank kalpo efa igiso SO na yuna jang ibadin kiyato kati yuna wallet ibe falindiro ke kan sandiri nyat
ni la yuna wallet to si muna fanno tulo jabo mano kandrin ni fen jama isi sanno la yona wallet to kono yalla kamo soto ila wallet to kono
alkana la kondano tay ka bi yuna wallet anatan tolle rukan nabal wo fanondi abe sono yaren ko bulu podo ne la mobile scan yo science ise maboro ke wato men diate
ko be sandro ke fangole ba ko ba ke kan dimbalem isi ñu lonko e sandro se yona enterprise wato wati ani la yona wallet to la ibe lan kamo soto kay la wallet to kono
alina nakafun nanyi yuna dimbayal kan kasandiro ke yuna biti poto alina kata nyin ko kentat na sulo fa lolu di sandiro kije se ma boro fanan keje
moro jundia na nyum ko di mabal yin kadeda
Welcome to another edition of our show. If you have been following us, you know we're talking the Constitution and there's nothing else to talk about. For the past couple of weeks, I had politicians and of course lawyers. Today, I'm bringing civil society and some members. You know, I don't know whether I can call Dr. Gajigo civil society, but I have him here on two caps. We'll be talking about the MPC. And of course, we'll also look at the Constitution. Of course, our boss is here, Sait Matty. I have two bosses, Sait Matty and Marr Nyang. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fatou.
Today, let's start with what's trending first. We will look at our main topic will be the Constitution. But I want us to look at what is trending. I think what is trending yesterday is this Tangara's candidature as the Secretary General. Now, Gambia's candidate for the Secretary General is Mamadou Tangara of Foreign Affairs. He's been in Foreign Affairs for some years now, and you know, the Gambia he's going against Ghana's candidate and also I think Lesotho. And of course, you know, a lot of Gambians are supporting him because, you know, we believe if our candidate wins, that is the benefit of the entire country. But I see a petition yesterday coordinated by Chernonjai and Madi Jobate, Uncle Madi. My uncle is the PRO of the No to Tangara coalition. Now, when you when you see that, Dr. Gajigo, what's your first impression? Gambia is putting out our foreign affairs minister. Well, he's been foreign affairs for all these years, a seasoned diplomat, very calm, collected guy. But a lot of people, I see, people coming out to, say, have opposition. But I've seen a lot of people also who support this candidature. What is your position on that?
Well, for me, something like this, you have to see what is in the best interest of the country. And it's on the face of it, if you look at it just simply on the face, superficially, it's like, okay, you have a Gambian candidate going against candidates from other countries.
Yeah.
Let's support our guy.
Yeah.
But I think it's a mistake to equate this with like a football tournament or some sort of like a competition between countries. First of all, in terms of what benefit the country can get from ECOWAS, it's not going to depend on whether you have a Gambian national heading ECOWAS or not. I mean, sorry, Commonwealth or not. I mean, these international organizations, whether it's ECOWAS, whether it's African Development Bank or EU, they have well-laid established processes in how they allocate their assistance, whether financial or non-financial, to countries. You know, you might have some higher profile, you know, as a as a country, if your citizen is holding a higher profile level. For instance, I mean, how many Gambians could tell you that there was a time when the Gambia chaired the Security Council of the United Nations? Did it change anything that the UN actually, the number of projects or the volume of projects that the UN finances for the country?
Recognition, though. It brings recognition.
But, you know, what does that recognition translate to? The people occupying
global relevance, right?
Well,
what would you say?
Sure, let's go that. Yeah. So let's stress that. So recognition beyond the individual occupying that position. How does that translate to the average Gambian here? Yeah. I mean, recognition. Let's say Gambia being recognized for, let's say, the rotating chair of the Security Council. If Gambia is lucky to be with the Security Council, if it's chaired by the Gambia, yes, there will be an uptick in the reference being made to the country's name. But how does that translate to the long-term development of the Gambia? You know, what matters more is not, I mean, individually, it obviously would be an accomplishment to that individual who's occupying that position. All things being equal, I would rather see a Gambian in some position. If I believe that they are competent in what they are doing, they'll do a good job there, and their track record also shows that they've done a good job in the position that placed them in that opportunity. Now, Tangara happened to be a viable candidate mainly because why? Because he has been a foreign affairs minister
for two governments
for years. Now let's ask ourselves, what has been the tenure of Tangara as a foreign affairs minister in the Gambia? What has he accomplished during that time? What we do know is that if you look at the track record, I mean, one of the most mismanaged sectors in the Gambia is foreign affairs. Let me give you a specific example. Last year, what was the budget of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? It was about $2 billion. It was 99% recurrent expenditures. That amount was high when we had more important sectors in the government that did not have, I mean, in the country, that did not have the required investment of budget resources. Yet, under Tangara's leadership, we had an explosion of embassies, a large number of diplomats who, the only thing they accomplished was embarrass the country on international stage. Tangara's own personal record is nothing to be admirable. This is somebody who has been mentioned in an adverse way in the TRRC because of the role he played in trying to get some Gambian citizens to be brought back to actually, to face some very nasty circumstances if he had succeeded. You have all of those issues to consider. So if I ask myself now, you know, what is the track record of Tangara to put him in this opportunity to contest this position? It's not something that actually I find admirable. So, and what do you think the Gambia would benefit from having its citizen as head of Commonwealth? It's actually very little. Commonwealth, compared to other international institutions, is very small to begin with, number one. That's why it focuses on small states and small island nations, because its pocket of resources it can disburse is very tiny to begin with, even, I mean, compared to any of these small multilateral organizations. But even if it were bigger, having a citizen being there, the impact, apart from a slight uptick in the recognition that there's a Gambian citizen there, that is a very limited benefit to the country. We have to make a distinction about something that is material, that is substantive, versus something that's ephemeral, like having the name of a of a citizen in an international organization. This is not a football tournament or some competition between countries. Just because, like in this particular case, we don't have a Gambian there, tomorrow there could be another Gambian who is far better qualified, whose competence would be a positive reflection on all Gambians. It's not going to be in Gambia's interest if you have a Gambian citizen who is put in a very high prominent position, who based on his track record, there is no guarantee that he would actually perform in a way that would reflect positively on the country.
Okay, Marr, would it be a pride for our Foreign Affairs Minister to be the Secretary General of the Commonwealth? I mean, our name there, you know, he carries the Gambian name, you know, ECOWAS president is Gambian, you know, we want those kind of recognitions. Wouldn't that be a pride for every Gambian? Why would we have a petition against this candidature?
Well, it will be subjective. I've seen those petitioning against the candidature of Minister Tangara, and those advocating for him to be elected for that position. So you will not have the whole, I mean, two sides of the spectrum all meeting on the same, you know, or meeting in the middle. So for me, honestly speaking, I have little or no issue with Tangara running for that particular position. He's not a perfect minister, as Doctor said. He has his own track records.
Yeah.
So that all goes down to the root cause of everything, right? You know, how we have someone else becoming a deputy speaker. You know the root causes. How we have someone else becoming ministers in this country. We know all those root causes. So the problem started from within, but from outside, I have a bigger problem of them holding those sensitive positions in the country, managing our resources, than in Commonwealth. So I have no issue with that. My concern obviously will be within, but most importantly as well, he's a diplomat, and my interest will be how is he going to be representing the interests of the Gambia. And I do not really agree with all of his, you know, diplomatic, you know, missions, because I've seen little achievement in that. And I think the same thing will apply to the diaspora, because I think his ministry could have been one of those that will collaborate with the IEC to ensure that the diaspora are registered and voted. His ministry will have been responsible to collect data of all Gambians registered, or all Gambians in key countries. We have all of those data, so we were able to know the number of people in those countries to vote. So for me, those are my core issues. What happens at Commonwealth, I think, you know, we have other nationals. The chair currently is Paul Kagame, right? And the British call for democracy, but Paul Kagame is not a Democrat. So that's the reason why I said I have little concern about that.
Sid, when we get Gambians to represent us outside in the international, should we get the brightest and the best of us? I mean, I haven't had anything when it comes to the ECOWAS president, you know. And Tangara, I mean, he served 2 presidents. He was Foreign Affairs, went to the UN, and of course Foreign Affairs again. That says something. I don't know, from that point of view, it looks like he's doing something right. If he's been considered for this job, do you think he's the right person for it?
Well, I mean, for me, in the first place, I think this job is an individual job. I mean, we can be a sponsoring individual, but to get the job, you have to be elected. So, you know, I mean, this is just a candidature.
But we should throw our support as Gambia.
I mean, yeah, so I'm coming there. I mean, so that is the starting point. So this is a job for him. He's a Gambian, and like anything. And this is where I will disagree. Like, it's also like a sport, because politics for me is also sports. It's about winning. And this is where also it matters, especially in terms of the current conversation that we have. But for me, as a country, I mean, because he's a Gambian and he's going there, I mean, of course, that's a sense of pride. And I see quite a lot of people being proud of that. You know, Gambia is there, and so every country will get that. I mean, even here, when we talk about ethnicity in our politics, is because people feel one candidate is closer to their ethnicity. So that's the way that they do support. So there's always, that kind of people rallying around, especially when they feel is of national interest. And I think quite a lot of Gambians are looking at it at that way. That Gambia being there, like he said, it might not change anything. It will not directly improve the condition of living, because that's not the Commonwealth's job to improve our economy, improve the conditions of our living. That's our own business. And we are part of an organization. And Commonwealth for me is more about the cultural exchange. It's people getting to know each other, get here, get there. That's why if you look at their projects, they're more on education, cultural discussions of democracy. And this is what Gambia can sell, because we know what kind of people we are, and I think based on that we will be able to sell that. But the question that Commonwealth need to answer beyond even Tangara or who the leader is supposed to be is how are they going to address all this the colonizing agenda that people have been talking about, because people are trying to move away from all these ancient colonial relics to something else. But generally, I think for me, like Marr, it's a personal job. We're not paying, it's somebody that is paying.
Do you think this brings another conversation as Gambians? Because, will they teach anybody lessons like, okay, if you're in office, just be a little cautious because anything you do will be scrutinized along there? Because there was this time I had this police officer who we did a story on during the TRRC. He was accused of something. And the story was he was on this international appointment. There was renewal time, and this story keeps popping up. And they reach out for us to put the story down because he needed this job. As a Gambian at that point, I felt like, he wronged somebody. That's why the story is there. But also, this is a young person who's trying to build his life. I was caught up in this thing, and I kept saying this. When they say there's police brutality, I keep saying, sometimes they do all of these things and they say they don't care. But there will become a time, the internet never goes away. Yep. Things that public officials do will come to haunt you. Will this not be a lesson for anybody? I'm not saying Tangara did all these things that are there, but there were things that he was accused of when he was at the UN. But just broadly, as Gambians, as people in society, what we do when we serve in public offices.
If you're given a responsibility, for me, I keep saying there is just two things. I've been given a responsibility, that this is my responsibility. It doesn't mean like I own it. It doesn't mean like I'm going to be there forever. And I should always remember that tomorrow I'm going to die and leave.
Yeah.
And people must always remember, it's not between me and all the people that are sitting here. At the end of the day, the final analysis is also between me and my own God. To what extent is my conscience as clear as it is? Sometimes people are accused wrongly. I know somebody at the TRRC, but his name was also clear. Yeah. So there are those issues that also we also need to, in 2017, I wrote some, around 30th January, I said all Gambians, even members of the old regime must work together to build the society. Yeah. Because that was important in the sense that there are different elements of people saying these are enablers, these are that. And I think that is what is breaking our society into these smaller pieces. Of course, holding people accountable, especially people that have committed violations. We have set those parameters, we have set TRC, we have set Jani Commission, and people can continue to, hold everybody accountable. But to what extent are we going to be doing all those things? That's also a question that we must ask ourselves. And so for me, that's why at that time, and I think the case was issue Masane Kinte, because Masane was appointed and people say, oh, he served under Jammeh, he was general. Yeah. I say, how about the people that voted for Jammeh? Should they not be in the country? Because if you're talking about somebody enabling, the people that voted also were the very good people that were also enabling. So I think for me, these are things that we need to debate about and not just to personalize it into individuals. If people have done something wrong, I will definitely say that they have to be accountable. But beyond that, what else?
But at least it's good to have this kind of conversation. It's just healthy and it helps us to develop as a nation. Now, going forward, let's look at, I'm not going to have an economist here and not look at the MPC. Doctor, they said the economy is doing well. Yeah. Inflation has gone down from 14% to 9%. Yesterday, I was at the central bank. And I told them, I looked at them, I said, you said the economy is doing well. I am not doing well. You make me die here, but you know, Fatou, we know you're doing well. I said, I'm not doing well, and my neighbor is not doing well. So if you tell me inflation is down, the economy is doing well, our dollar is depreciating against all major currencies, that has not changed. The debt has gone up. So I don't know what measures, but you as an economist, you will know these things. Do you feel that, or do you think the economy is doing well as to what the MPC is telling us?
Well, I mean, I've read the MPC, and my reaction was also surprised, because, I mean, I tell people, whether you're an economist or not, I mean, if someone comes around and tell you, you know, even if you go to a hospital, if you're not feeling well, doctor said everything is okay, go and get a second opinion. And if an economist comes and tell you economy is doing great, and you know, you don't feel, your pocket doesn't tell you the same, or when you go, the prices of goods are telling you something different, trust the facts that are in front of your face. And you know, for me, even before going into the numbers, you know, I live in the country, and I purchase things at the market, and what I experience is very different from what the MPC press release is trying to say. I mean, let's start with the bigger picture. I believe their phrase was the economy is performing strongly. So if you look at the combination of the things that that you can get from the press release, which is the debt is going up, our current account is deteriorating, our GDP growth rate, despite what they say, is low, because I mean something like 5%. If you remove the population growth rate, you're talking about per capita growth rate of 2-point-something%. It's less than 3%. For a poor country, that is bad. You have other factors in there. When you combine all, and you know, high debt, high inflation, low GDP growth, deterioration of current account deficit, those are not features that tell you an economy is doing well. Basically, somebody is like looking at a human being saying the person has high fever, you know, losing weight, all sort of symptoms that are supposed to be negative, and then you say the person is in excellent health. That just doesn't concur with reality. So it's the same thing here. The problem with that press release is that you have the central bank going out of its way to try to project a positive image that is false. But even the numbers they bring in, despite their efforts at doing, you know, rhetorical gymnastics, you cannot really cover the bad news. You know, so when you talk about the economy performing strongly, then you come up with a GDP growth rate 5.7%. For a country that is a poor, fragile country, that is not good. You also talk about our foreign exchange market being stable, and then the next statement talks about the Gambian currency depreciating against every major currency. I mean, those currencies are from countries that account for more than 90% of all of our trading volume. You also talk about the biggest foreign exchange, our biggest source of foreign exchange is remittances, that in fact going down. You talk about, oh, the banking sector is sound. Nobody's saying we have a banking crisis, but let's be realistic here. When you talk about banking sector, the only thing you talk about is liquidity and capitalization, but then the first indicator you mention is that the NPL is deteriorating. You would think that the press release would say something about the fact that what is the composition of the asset, what class of asset is accounting for the decline, for the increase in default rate, but nothing, they didn't mention any of those salient relevant facts in there. So you don't also mention the fact that the government debt is going up, and mainly because it is short term. A lot of that debt is through, if you look at the assets of the banking sector, it is the time they are gobbling up a lot of that government securities. That in a different paragraph, you talk about the fact that the credit to the private sector is going down, but you attributed that to tight monetary policy when you should have attributed that to the fact that the increased government borrowing is crowded out credit to the private sector. You can talk about many things. The problem, I mean, I looked at that, I feel insulted, because it is insulting the intelligence of the people. They are trying to project a false image, and I think it really underscores, I mean, if you think about it, the fact that they called journalists to the State House, you know, complaining about why they didn't get a wider coverage, and the angle that they get, it shows that these people are playing a political game rather than a bunch of technocrats who are supposed to do a dispassionate and an objective monetary policy analysis in the country.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if I feel the same way. Marr, this is your area too, right? You're very passionate about all of this, and I see your reaction. What is your own reaction when you saw the press release or watched the press conference that the governor and his team put at the MPC? Are you convinced that we're doing well?
Well, I did not read or come across the press release, but based on the information that you've raised and the analysis from Dr. Gajigo,
Yeah.
That the economy is doing well and inflation has also decreased. As civil society actors, we go down now and look at the living standards of our people. So to the government, if you were, for example, importing flour and maybe perhaps the external factors that affected the prices of flour, maybe whether it's the Russia-Ukraine war,
Yeah.
whether it is the external crisis. So if those crises are gradually lifting the impact on those products, now the prices goes down from that end, coming to the country. But you go now to the market, right? We should expect that if the amount of flour goes down, the price of bread goes down.
Yeah.
But the price of bread remains the same. If the same thing happens with, with issues like mayonnaise,
Yeah.
but the price of mayonnaise still remains the same. Juices and others, they all remain the same. So to the normal or average citizen that goes to the market and buy products, things and living conditions are becoming harder because it is becoming very difficult to afford basic needs. So if you tell an average citizen
Yeah.
that the economy is doing well, inflation is decreasing, and we have to tell the people what does that mean.
Yeah.
Right? Once we make that clear, then they should be able to tell us whether what they are feeling regarding the economy is compatible to what the government is reporting. So maybe when the government is making this such report, they have to separate the two, so that people can get to understand. Because the government also does not go to the market. Central bank does not go inside the market to record prices of basic commodities.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the Minister of Finance or the Consumer Protection. We don't have those price control mechanisms like it used to be before. Gambia used to do that,
Yeah.
right? He send someone else, maybe a security personnel, get into a shop
Yeah.
and they ask the amount of this price, right? We have lifted the taxes. Why are you still
selling
it?
Yes,
We
used
have
to do that.
reduced the levies on it. Why are you selling it at this? We don't have that. So that is one concerning thing. And then the other thing he has already mentioned, how the dollar currency, and I started saying maybe we should give up our economic sovereignty and start appreciating or introducing the CFA, because the dollar is almost to the graveyard,
Yeah.
if not already one foot inside the graveyard.
Yeah.
Because all the, like he mentioned, 90% of our consumed goods are actually imported in this country, and you are buying those goods in CFA.
Yeah.
Or the dollar. Dollar keeps increasing every now and then. Now the CFA is also appreciating. So if I was giving this analysis yesterday to someone else, if you are buying cabbage from Senegal, right? Let's say, for example, you're buying a basket for 30 mil at a time. Now 30 mil will be the equivalence of, for example, at the time 3,000. But now if that 30 mil is 3,005 or 3,006, do you expect the same price to be maintained by the one who's importing the goods? It's not possible. You understand? So we have not done well at all in increasing the purchasing value of the dollar. We have not done well to strengthen our economy, most specifically our currency. So ECO, we cannot achieve ECO anytime soon. Not 2027 that they are targeting, not even 2030 based on my own analysis, because that's what ECO was saying. 2027 is impossible.
Yeah.
Should we consider the CFA? I know most Gambians, this will be very controversial, but the reality is the dollar is struggling. It's struggling, and we cannot afford it anymore. So for me, that is my analysis. The average Gambian really doesn't feel that the prices of basic commodities are going down. The prices of medication, especially private medication, is not going down, because all of those that are importing drugs, they buy it with US dollar.
Yeah.
so they are going up. The same thing for fish and others. So I really, that is my take on this.
You wanted to say something?
No, I wanted to just say something on inflation. I'm sorry if I
No,
can.
this is your expert.
You are the expert.
We are just contributing. Yes, we are contributing.
This is not our area.
I'm sure he will have something substantive to say about it. No, but I just wanted to say something, just in fairness to the government. Like, I mean, I totally agree with you. This inflation, I wanted to actually add to that. The inflation figures, I don't believe it. What is reported by the central bank, I don't believe it. I'm not saying I've looked at the numbers. I mean, the process of calculating inflation is pretty simple. The way it's done, and in fairness to them, they still do the practice of going. I mean, the way the inflation numbers are calculated is that this GBOS, which is the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, they have this a list of items, food and non-food items. If you go to their website, you see this list, and then they track their prices. And then a composite price index is done, and then this the change in this composite price index is what gives you the inflation rate. But if you go through this list and you look at the prices of those things, and all of us here who go to the market, the reduction in inflation that they are claiming is not consistent with what you and I will find in the market. So I do not believe them at all. So I'm not, in terms of his point, I'm totally in agreement with him that this inflation, these numbers, they just don't look realistic. And it seems to me these are numbers like people will say they are cooked. You know, they are cooked. I mean, of course, I mean, I'm not present there. I'm not sure how it's done, but it is just completely at odds with what I see day to day when you are buying whether food or non-food items. The idea that food prices, inflation have the drop in the inflation rate has gone to that level is something I just don't believe in. And you can also see, but even if we agree with their numbers, it's still not something to be proud, because look at what they compare it with when they compare it with the price of rice internationally and the FAO food index. All of these indices are going down, but we are still experiencing an uptick. And this is related to one of an important point he raised about currency. We have to think about why is the dalasi falling constantly against the dollar, against the CFA. Why is it that? It can all be traced to one key thing, which is, if you look, this government has this policy which is prioritizing imports over exports. So you have programs at the central bank, you have programs at the central government itself, where the government is now going out of its way to guarantee loans for companies to import. Instead, when you should be guaranteeing loans for local companies to produce things locally instead of importing. The problem is that right now, the trade deficit that we have is the highest we've ever had since independence. Our imports are over $500 million more than our exports. This is why we always, with this persistent trade deficit, is why our current account balance is persistently negative, is always deteriorating. In every press release, you see that. So what's happening is that because as you import more and you export less, you basically are increasing the demand of foreign other currencies. And your currency, that's nobody's demanding, because people will only demand your currency when you are exporting or when there is foreign investment. We don't have, you don't see any mention of foreign direct investment in this, by the way, because it's nothing to be proud of. So, except for the remittances coming, and they have no control over that.
But that has even gone down.
That has even gone down. But if we are not getting remittances from the diaspora, our dalasi would even plummet more than it has. So the government, instead of central bank, by the way, is part of this problem. In the IMF mentioned that they themselves should, in their own books, they are extending a lot of this debt to the government that they should actually reduce. So you have all of these programs where instead of facilitating things like local rice production, you are now increasing our debt, because by guaranteeing a loan for a foreign bank, that is a contingent liability that is adding to our debt. So you are basically increasing our debt, at the same time increasing our trade deficit, and that trade deficit is having a knock-on effect on the value of the dalasi, which means that the price of these goods, they keep increasing even if the international price stays the same, because the dalasi is falling in value. We will be experiencing inflation, because it will be inflation that is coming through the depreciation of our currency.
In addition to the capital flight as well.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Most. I mean, you also look at most production companies. They are not owned by Gambians, so the revenue that they also generate, they obviously translate into foreign currency and it gets out of the country.
I mean, that one, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you have like an economy where the business enabling environment and investment climates are positive, you would have, there are a lot of Gambians who would be more than happy to come here and invest. But right now, you don't. There are Gambians that I know who wanted to come and start businesses, and they are leaving. Let me give an example of a Gambian I know who quit his job in Washington, D.C. to come and start a business. Guess which business he wanted to go into? He did a couple of things, but one of them is cement. His trucks would bring cement, but they would do other things locally. But he was unfortunately one of those people who, when his trucks went to Senegal to bring cement, the government had this policy of getting them all blocked. So that young Gambian who has left his job to come back and invest in his country, now most likely would probably think of how he'll pack his bags, rescue whatever little money he is left, and try to flee the country. Instead of attracting our diaspora to come back and invest, we are actually implementing unsound policies that is making the country a hostile investment climate for them.
Now, Sait, are you feeling the economy is in the right direction?
Economy, yeah. Pardon, just keep checking your for economy data. Like he said, just check your pocket. He's talking about inflation. In school, we remember inflation was what? Too much money chasing what? Few goods. Too few goods. Yeah. You don't even see money. You're talking about inflation. You don't even see money. Yeah. And people cannot even, buy quite a lot of stuff. But yes, there's a government responsibility. But I mean, man, when I look at it, I also go back to the people, that there's also people responsibility. But what is causing all these things is lack of production, basically. And for me, I believe a country must do two things. It must think about how to raise money, how to get the wealth, and also how to redistribute it fairly among its people.
Yeah.
But the way we are looking at money, we're just behaving like a colonial enterprise. Tax the people, get as much as possible, and then we spend it in what? Some things that can get us re-elected, into roads, into things, instead of spending into the productive sector that can generate people get better living condition, livelihoods better. We don't do that. Everything that we do in this country, it has a small short-term consideration. And individuals, even if you take it to us, it's the way that individuals think, it's the way government think. It's short-term, it's just me. After me, nothing is important. And this is the problem. That's why the economy is getting, even the diaspora. He talks about the diaspora. Me under Jame, one of the things the diaspora was the one fighting. But I also blame the diaspora because the diaspora was the one maintaining the people in this country under Jame, because what was there? That's why people were leaving, going through the back way, and still now people are going through the back way. But while people are leaving, there is empty land. Who's gonna cultivate that land? Because even if you leave, you're gonna get money, you send it here, that money will not mean anything. Because we are talking about what? Inflation. Yeah. But people need to eat. We need to grow the food. We need to fish. We have 80-kilometer coastline. We have a river. Half of it fresh water. He talked about rice production. One time I'm saying here, why can't we get the military? We're a country that is building. We don't have anything. The military is here. What are they doing? At least get a piece of land. At one point I was on radio and some of these communities were calling, where is the military? Because the military started doing that. You want food self-sufficiency. Get them, give them certain percentage, let them focus on that. Help build, and so that the people can survive on that. But there was so much criticism on that. People forget that even our own constitution, 1990 constitution, say that the military can intervene in education, in agriculture, and even in the healthcare provision. So we also don't use our institution to address some of the problems that we have. Even road construction, you go to the rural communities, people cannot access road. military have engineering corps, police have engineering corps. That's what countries do. Singapore today we sing about, they use their own institution. They turn their security into civilian institution, and then they help address some of these economic challenges that the country is facing.
You said something that is very remarkable. The wealth is circulating among few. Somebody said this to me yesterday. I said, Halis amnade, but it's among the Funeka rotate among few. If it is rotating among the few and the rest of us don't see it, coming ko human gain nagis Halis. I'm not a yotam gain no cookies.
Rubber, see, everybody in this country is a rubber. It's a rubber mood.
Rubber mood like a firefighting.
You know, but Fatou, you know.
But for how long can that continue
society,
though?
Fatou, society is built.
We can survive with that. And I'm happy also mention about our waters.
Yeah.
Although I am someone else that is also in the fishing industry. It's unbelievable what is happening in our coastline. Somehow unregulated. You have vessels that you have launching, and you are giving them a criteria as to the type of net that they should have, the zones that they should be fishing in. Now they get all the way into the water, get into the restricted zones, fish, and then the nets that they also use to catch fish will catch the juvenile fish, right? Catch them, and then when those are arrested by our navy, you see in the water another boat getting into the water to negotiate and let that vessel go. So if you are also experiencing this inflation of the fish that is caught, there are two things. Number one, yes, scarcity of fish. I mean, that is also based on the season, right? Especially when there is heavy rain, most fishing boats will not be going to the sea. But other thing, even outside that season, you know what these fishing vessels do? Most of these foreign fishing vessels, when you have your boat and you spread your net, right? In our local context, we call it Marr. They will go there for Marr, be there fishing journey for a couple of nights. They will encroach on your net, and the vessel will intentionally encroach on the net and go along with the net to monopolize the business,
affecting artisanal.
And then our old domestic fishermen, and that has been highly unregulated. So we always talk about our waters, want people to be in there, but the Ministry of Fisheries have a hand in this. The Navy and Maritime, they all have a hand in this. So I think this is something else that really have to be looked at, because we should be able to fish, process that fish from within, and then sell it, consume it from within. The circular economy that we always talk about. And those barren lands that are there, most people don't want to cultivate what goes to the market, okra and others. They want to cultivate something else that will be processed from within, right? There is a market actually. There is a market to sell it, right? So if there is no market to sell it, they will look elsewhere, another country to start cultivating. So I think, like he said, that money that is given to businesses, private businesses to import goods, it should be otherwise. Give them money to establish companies, manufacturing companies, production companies, process goods
in the country.
So that will also encourage others. Like in Thailand, the farmers that are not into commercial farming, you know what one hotel did? They adopted organic food and organic products in that hotel. Every single thing consumed in that hotel is cultivated by their farmers. So they employ, or they contract instead farmers to cultivate. Now those farmers will cultivate as much as they want, and then they will supply it to the hotel. The hotel will connect with a processing company, process into towel, into soap, into body oil, shampoo, and everything. So I think that,
You know, for me, when Marr is talking, with all this, and even the example that he gave, importation, you know how the colonialists stopped rice production in this country? People were growing their own rice in this country. But they wanted to change people, the focus from rice to groundnut. And what they did was just to ban certain things. Say, okay, you cannot plant rice here, you should plant it in the swamp. It should be done by women, not men. So they bring in this kind of policies that basically make us importing rice all the time. But at some point, there was this whole intention. After independence, intentional design to diversify the crop, bring in Jahali Pacha and all those things. Because a country, you cannot talk about your independence. Today we're free talking about everything else.
Yeah.
But everybody is hungry in this country. Everybody is hungry.
COVID-19
COVID-19 also made it worse.
Yeah.
And from the capital, the more you go, you get it worse.
Yeah.
Because some of us are here, are closer, at least we can get, some consultancy here.
Yeah.
But everyday Gambians, those are things that we also, when we do surveys, you ask them the direction of the country, they're not talking about in terms of politics, they're talking more in terms of the everyday, the survival aspects. That's why the country's direction is not seen as going in the right direction. And I think for us, what we need to do at this minute, we can talk about monetary, we can talk about that, but it is about how do we build wealth for this country, and not for us, but for the generation that is yet to come. Because this is where we talk about inheritance. We inherit a country, a free country, and we are not building it. Instead, we are destroying it.
How is that possible if our debt level keeps growing and we have to continuously pay what we pay to our debt, whoever we're owing, is taking a bunch of our yearly,
And even if they stop taking debt, the repayment of the debt are done in foreign currency. So if the dollar keeps appreciating, if you're owing someone else $70 at a time, or $60, it will increase. So as the dollar keeps appreciating, the dollar depreciates, the repayment of the debt also keep increasing.
So
even if you stop taking debt. No, da nga sul sa bopp pare fu mu nekk ni bopp rek nga desel yaa ngi nokki.
You hang la mooy soof loolu. Buñ jël loan. Cut your code according to your size. Cut your code. Me that's what I'm okay with austerity measures there to fix things.
Well, you don't even need an austerity measure. The problem also is there's nothing fundamentally wrong with government taking loan. Just like a business can take loan and then you have, as long as you do something productive.
Where do you put it?
Yes, you get return and you pay.
Yeah.
The problem here is if you look at our expenditures, where we put the money in, it's not, like Ministry of Foreign Affairs, like my example at the beginning.
2 billion.
Does it make sense that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a poor country like the Gambia takes $2 billion? It makes no sense. How many hospitals, even you can build within a 5-year period, you can build multiple power plants. From there, that will solve the energy problem in this country, bring the cost of energy. No. Fraction of that will solve the water problem. We have a foundation where we help local farmers in the Gambia, like vegetable farmers across the country. Before starting that non-profit foundation, went around the country, find out which, basically the largest 150 village vegetable gardens.
Yeah.
In terms of what they need for fencing,
water,
irrigation, something like cold storage to make sure that you don't have excessive post-harvest losses, and some assistance in terms of marketing. That would just take a small fraction of the money that goes into keeping useless embassies open in many countries where we shouldn't have. You'll have like three countries that we have embassies in, and they all share the same border, but most of those embassies don't have anything to do. So the point I'm trying to make is that the issue with the debt here is that it's not that fundamentally there is something wrong with borrowing. Every country will borrow. It's that the reason is why are you borrowing? It should be to borrow money, to invest in something that is needed, so that it will generate high, not only economic, but high social returns. Addressing the problems that you have. It could be education, it could be health, it could be infrastructure, it could be fisheries, it could be natural resources, it could be agriculture. But when you do these things, they will generate returns. And the economy will grow, poverty will go down, your tax base, even if you reduce the tax rate, your tax base will be broadened such that what you collect in tax revenue will enable you not only to repay that loan, but you have enough to invest further for the welfare of the people. The problem here we have is that if you look at the budget from 2017, and I've been doing this every single budget, it's like the misallocation of resources, the degree of it gets worse and worse. You can always see how such a large portion of our debt, is driven by expenditures going towards, a very bloated foreign affairs ministry, a bloated state house ministry. Like you have like several permanent secretaries of state house, that is duplicating roles in ministries. Like why would you have a permanent secretary for investment at the State House, when you have Ministry of Industry,
you have
and you have
GAIPA.
GAIPA on the Ministry of Industry.
Yeah.
You have several of these things there in the government, and you have duplication of ministries.
Why do you have youth advisor when you have Minister of Youth?
Yeah.
Same with the Ministry of Digital Economy.
Exactly. There are
Communication,
tons of
Ministry of
examples.
Information. So I think he's definitely right. Our recurrent expenditures always keep increasing because of these government decisions and policies, right? Creation of posts, and every single post that you create, you give the person salary, you give the person a vehicle, you give them a driver,
You give them fuel.
right? Fuel, and it keeps increasing. So
Travel, all the allowances.
I mean, and when they come up with these, ad hoc travel restriction measures, right? This is something else that I keep talking about. It's not making sense at all. You did this a couple of years ago. You continue to do it, which means you knew the problem, and it's recurring. The issue is when you create this restriction for a certain period of time and you open it again, then people can get into all the unnecessary travels because they know they are unnecessary travels, and you get to pay for their hotels. And the measure that we use, and I've been talking about this, the government ministries should have these cards, per diem cards. Perhaps it could be a visa card.
Yeah.
Put a certain amount of money in it. Whoever is traveling, you are given that card. Your accommodation and everything regulated. Instead of just saying, okay, we should go to, when you're going to Senegal, we give you this in cash. And then also we should have a per diem policy. Every single country, if you're going to Senegal, the per diem that you should be receiving, or in fact, let's do it this way. Even if you are in the US, there are certain states, the cost of living differs, right? So maybe if you are in Los Angeles, that is more expensive than if you are in Texas.
Yeah.
So if you're going to a particular destination, the government should have a policy to say, okay, this state, this country, this is the amount of per diem. But just a minister will give you 300 pounds.
Per night.
Maybe that's cheaper for government too. No,
How?
sir? Like for instance, you talk about Los Angeles, where one destination is so expensive, for instance. You know, so if government say, okay, this is the ceiling, 350 for you, 300 for you, whether it is 600, 700, we don't care. I mean, I'm just saying, but I totally agree with the fact that, there needs to be a policy, a clear policy on that. And even the fact that, why would people get money? Because recently there was someone we invited, but they said the university gave them card where they do their own expenses.
Yeah.
Instead of me asking you, bring your receipt, the other time there was a whole report of interest, people have to return that. Already you give them something that is limited. When they spend it, it's already documented.
The audit reports have been mentioning about unretired interest because of the cars that they give to people when they get back that have already been consumed.
Yeah.
So, and I don't agree with you.
And
That's
most
not
of
better
that,
for them.
that's different from
No, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that it is. Maybe I'm saying. But also, the per diem is also like an extra means of getting money.
Obviously.
So government, like for me sometimes I just don't understand government, and this is the simple fact. In terms of employment, when you compare them with the private sector, in terms of payment is way below, and they might likely do quite a lot of job, and they're not making profit out of that. So how do also people? For me, I feel like they need to think about that, and I think maybe it's better to explain new public management, where you link people's performance also in terms of how they're going to be paid. But if you just say grade 8, and what is grade 8? Grade 8 is less than 10,000 or something, and you have somebody that has, it doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense in
They
this country.
refuse to take the advice of the PMO to revise the grading scale. Because even that grade 8, if you have your less than 10,000 salary, they start introducing so many allowances.
Yeah.
That is that in fact 100% more than your basic salary.
So
They are non-taxable.
Yeah.
And for me, that is where
government.
it's unfair because you cannot ask private entities that their grocery should be taxed, but government only basic should be
But
taxed.
that's government. This is government. Government make the rules.
But that's not what the law says. So it's affecting everyone, and it's unfair. So for me, honestly, right, the direction that the government is taking is just going to bury them in the grave. you know someone else who can do this job very well, and the person is competent. So many diasporians that wanted to come back and work, but they cannot come in and work under these 10,000 salaries if they are receiving $5,000 a month.
Unstable electricity.
Right? You have a grading scale. It's bad, outdated, unacceptable. Why not come with a grading scale? And then make sure that the PMO also did this, the heads of all public employees.
Yeah.
There are certain posts, they are unnecessary, and there are 3 posts that one person can do. Right? It's going to be brutal. It's really going to be brutal because the change comes with, strong measures.
Yeah.
You will not be able to please all because we have been doing the same thing over and over again, and we're expecting different results. It's not going to happen. Bring someone else, or the positions that are unnecessary, take them off, and then get that person to do a competent job. One person's competent job that is going to outdo 3 persons' work will impact the living standard of so many people in the trade sector, or in fact processing of certain documentations that have economic implications on businesses and also people. If that's going to take them for 21 days, someone else is able to do that consistently within 4 days, it means the government is becoming more effective, and then you are delivering service on a timely and a quality matter, which is also impacting the economy. Because if processes are slow, it's just like transportation in a country. If you have bad transportation, the growth of the economy will probably be very slow. Because if you're transporting goods from here to Guinea-Bissau, if it was taking you 5 hours, now it's taking you 3 hours, that truck can go, deliver, come back and deliver. So the amount of trips that you could do will increase. So if you have this slow pace of processes, it affects services, it affects the economy.
How does this help though? There's so much duplication of roles in government. For example, the chief of staffs, now the office of the secretary general is more of ceremonial, like kind of, because that is basically what the chief of staff is kind of doing at State House. This office is secretary general. It's not even at the State House now. It's at somewhere in, around there. And then you have the PMO. You have the PSC,
yeah.
where you also have permanent secretaries who are supposed to look at departments. Like Gamtel, they are under the Ministry of Information, and their permanent secretary looks at what they do. When they prepare their budgets, they send it to the Office of the President to look at it. Now you have this new commission that they set up to look at public enterprises, why they are performing. There's so much duplication of roles. At some point, you don't even know what is happening. Does this also affect our productivity as a government and slow down processes and makes it difficult? Because you don't even know. At some point, I think about it. I say, what is the role of the commission that they set up for public enterprises to look at their performance? Now, what will be the role of the permanent secretary at the Ministry of Information? They're supposed to look at these departments. What is the role of the PS at the State House, who oversees all of these things? If you have another body there who's also doing all of these things, how does this help in an economy like ours? And you have, don't forget about the 1,000 advisors you have at State House.
You want to answer that? Or
Yeah,
I can also pick it up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not only the duplications, but in the President's Zona, I cannot remember the actual number of vacancies, but it's in the thousands of vacancies that are still not filled. So duplication of responsibilities also affects the budget, right? You are now attracting more expenditure in administrative costs, which you could have actually used to address the core issues that affects people. I think it all goes down to organizing, right? Organizing in a sense that if you have created a position that comes with defined roles and responsibilities, qualification of that particular person, right? What the person seeks to achieve. So what normally happens, sometimes you bring in someone else who keeps giving you complaint, I cannot do this, I need assistance, I need this, I need that. Okay, fine. We go and then get someone else.
Yeah.
but you have a predefined responsibility to do. You know this where the responsibility. If the scope of your work is increasing, then we can say yes. But if you're doing the same thing, the same responsibility that has been assigned to you, why create another position? So, and then the other factor is political compensation. Someone else that have been campaigning for you, or someone not. So sometimes we blame the president. We look at the leadership of the institutions. Yeah. Right. You get in as a minister. You know someone else, and then you bring that person in. There is no vacancy in that particular position, but just through the back door, you bring that person in and give them a job to do, and it becomes very difficult for the government to get rid of those people the moment they get into the system. And firing is not a culture that we have built.
No, we don't fire people.
As Gambians, especially as our government. For us, yes, it is totally understanding emotionally. If I fire this person, but you also look at the bigger picture, that person against the millions of Gambians that are affected. So that is the reason why I say change comes with some brutal actions. You're going to hurt feelings. You cannot be pleasing everyone to achieve the greater goal that millions of people are looking for. So, I mean, to answer your question, that has been the issue, the productiveness of our system. And sometimes so many good employees or so many good public servants find it difficult to excel because of all these bureaucracies and infighting and, you know, political politics within those institutions that is closing the gate for those people to excel because they are independent. They can do their work professionally. This is the reason why you also see an insurgence of public officials moving from government, going to the private sector, where you have the enabling environment. So they keep saying government have no business to do business, but I think in this day and age, government needs to think as a corporate. Right? Increase productivity. In fact, that is in their own interest. If the productivity of the government increases, right, the efficiency, the integrity of the government also increases. If the productivity also increases, the economy also do well. If that also increases, you are also increasing the level of satisfaction of citizens in terms of receiving public services. So the whole problem, this government will go, another government comes. If they don't address this issue, we're going back at it every now and then.
Finally, Doctor, now that we know that inflation numbers has gone down, it was around 13 point something, now it's 9. How long will it take for the ordinary Gambian to feel it? If inflation goes down, it should take some time before it kicks in. I mean, I see Americans complaining inflation is below 3%, and they complain. I'm like, we are talking about 9. We were in the double digits. At least we're gone down. We are now in single digit 9. Now, would we feel it at this rate, like in few months, or would it take longer for it to kick in? If the numbers they are talking about are really real, how long would it kick in, and for us, the ordinary folks, to feel it?
I mean, it's difficult to say. I mean, if the numbers, if what they are claiming is real, we should be feeling it now, because it's actually the number they are saying is supposed to be a reflection of what has happened over the past couple of months. By the way, you know, since their last MPC. I mean, obviously, I mean, inflation is a funny thing. There's a lot of psychological component to it. I mean, you also have people's expectations. But I mean, like I said again, I mean, economic forecast is, you know, a few people come out good making any strong economic forecast, and I'm not going to get into one. But I mean, instead of focusing on inflation, I think we need to focus on the, you know, the core part of the economy. Like, what are they doing? I mean, some of these concrete and relevant issues, like he's talking about, you know, efficiency at the level of the government. I mean, even if inflation goes down, let's say for some reason magically just goes down to 1%, but everything else in the government, how the government does its business, stays the same. It's not going to mean anything. You can also be in a situation where inflation is actually low, but the economy is not, it's not going anywhere. there actually are situations where you can have like, inflation being close to zero and the economy, being in a very terrible state. You can think of economy as some sort of like, the inflation as some sort of like a symptom of the economy. You can have a situation where the inflation we are having right now is consistent with a well-performing economy. And in a situation like that, the central bank would have the problem of, let's say, preventing the economy from overheating. So the fundamental problem here is that the economy is not doing very well. So right now, inflation is a problem because all of these other similar all of the different indicators of the economy, whether it is employment generation, the conducive environment, tax policies, investment policies, all of these things that come together, the confluence of which determine how the economy is doing, these things are not going well. If you go to the example of, like, let's say, let's take the issue of, let's say, permanent secretaries. Mm-hmm. In a typical ministry, the permanent secretary is supposed, now we have two, right? I'll just assume we have one, but in a typical ministry, we have two permanent secretaries. Usually, this is number two in a ministry. Mm-hmm. So if things are going well, this person should be in charge of planning things doing well. The structure of our country is like, we borrow things from other countries and just supplant them here over time without thinking about how they address our local context. You have a situation right now where permanent secretaries can be moved at moment notice. Yeah. From by this position, this position, this is at the State House. I forgot that there is this. I think the Secretary General. Secretary General. Yes. But what this is trying to imply is as if the position of permanent secretary is not based on sector expertise. If you have somebody who's spending years in Ministry of Education, is conversant with the education policies and strategies and the problems in the education sector, one moment you just move that person to Ministry of Petroleum or Fisheries somewhere else, and then you move another person to another ministry. What are you saying about the need for sector expertise? You are saying basically expertise doesn't matter. Experience and knowledge, priorities, concerns, and problems in a sector doesn't matter. How can you have continuity, planning, long-term planning and execution of policies when people are being moved about in very vastly different sectors? You cannot have any effectiveness in that government, and therefore, money that's allocated will be allocated in a poor way. And human resources is the most important part of any resource anyway. So if you are misallocating human resources, we can only imagine, no one should be surprised that financial resources are being misallocated. So right now, we do focus on inflation, and of course we should, because the average person faces the pinch of inflation every time they go to buy a good or a service. Mm-hmm. But it's basically like the analogy I would think about is here. Just think of somebody suffering from malaria, having fever. Mm-hmm. The fever is just one physical manifestation of underlying infection that is there. And the underlying infection at the core of our economy here is a very inefficient, ineffective government whose actions are determined not so much by the long-term social economic benefit of the country, but short-term political rewards. That's the problem at its core here, fundamentally. Fundamentally.
Interesting conversations. I wish we could go further, but we have the bigger thing to look at. The economy is bigger than anything, right?
It's more important.
Constitution and economy, spending 100 and something. But yeah, Sait, I want to start with you when it comes to the Constitution. Definitely survey. Recently, you guys did a survey. We always rely on it. I don't know how comes a survey. And I was like, Sait, really? But
Sait, non-planner. I was planning for them.
No, I interviewed Dabo here on Thursday.
And next day,
I think you Gasset beginner. Yes, I'm like, what? Yeah. The fact that I just brought that up, I didn't even know, but I just brought it up. But I did that with Marr also. Now, you guys did a survey, and the survey said majority of Gambians, overwhelming majority, want I think 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 71%.
71%.
Yeah.
7 out of 10 Gambians want us to have a constitution.
Yes.
And that is overwhelming majority of Gambians.
Okay.
It seems like ñepp xam nañ ne loolu dafa am solo.
But you see, luñ fi commencé di wax ni on the economy, inflation, and all that stuff, man, I just link it back to constitution. You see, me, I feel that the fundamental problem in this country is structural problem. And I keep saying that all along, but people might not see that. Because we still have a colonial enterprise, a colonial setup, everything. Because people feel, dañ dee ñëw fekk dara rek ndox bi mu ngi fa fi la ko suñu maam yi bàyyoon. So this is the way we do things. So therefore we continue doing it that way. And that's why everything is becoming problematic in society. And at some point we now dama dee wax ne comme buba yu dang lañ sol mu ngi xotee ko all aspect. And any aspect you touch in this country is problematic. Whether it's the relationship between people in terms of social cohesion, and we used to, when we were growing up, we were saying that this country was what? Peaceful, tolerant, harmonious. But now, even if you say tolerant in Gambian context, I wonder what that is. You know, so quite a lot of things are changing. But in Sunni Sovivi, you know, we are very much interested, and we did this in April and May. You know, around that time, what we wanted to do, an Afrobarometer was coming. That was our turn to do that. And so we thought it would be important to ask people about the constitutional process, because we did not hear. There was, they started this, when it was rejected, there was those meeting. At some point, we didn't hear anything. So we wanted to, and at some point also, Marr organized, I think we've had,
right?
Yeah, but even before the constitution, they won. The Gambia participants have been doing consistent civil society engagement. And so for us, we also thought, you know, based on that, we could ask citizens, you know, about what they think about this different process. So we asked whether, first question we asked was whether the country needs a new constitution. And you saw that 71% of the citizens believe that yes, that is like 7 out of 10 believe that the country needs a constitution. But we did not only stop there. We went and asked whether the draft, because then we only have the draft 2020. And the debate was that the draft should go back to the parliament and all that stuff. So we asked also whether the draft should go back to the parliament for amendments. And 67% of the population responded and say, yes, the draft should go back, you know, to parliament. But also we asked about the commitment of political leaders or commitment of political actors. Because, you know, last time after the bill was rejected, I came and I openly said that, you know, for me, I strongly felt there was lack of engagement between the parties. Because constitutional building is a process. It's a process of negotiation. It's a process of give and take. But that did not happen. And I was in parliament, and when I talked to this one, he said, this one, they pushed me, ping pong. So I came out and I said, for me, I felt nothing like that happened. So it was both parties. And so this time, we decided to ask the people whether they feel that the political parties are committed to the process. And then we saw that, you know, majority of the citizens, say that the political parties are not interested. But even then, even UDP was seen to be way more committed than the NPP. I think in terms of commitment, NPP had 27 and UDP 34. But still, it's about 3 out of 10 say, you know, majority people do not feel like political parties are committed. But then we also asked in terms of whether the National Assembly was right to reject the Constitution. You know, because me, when they were rejecting that, I was there. And what they were saying was we were doing this for our people, because it was the people that say that. So I went back to ask the people, because that's my role as civil society and researcher. If you say you are doing things for people, I go back and ask the people. And when I ask the people, 51% say they disagree with the National Assembly, rejecting the, so that is more than half. So it shows also, I mean, during the Marr's, and he's here, during Marr's conversation, because we anticipate that the Constitution will eventually come back. What form, how mechanism, those things were not, but we wanted to see that the mistakes that we did the other time in terms of political parties come and say this one is not serious, this one is not serious, we ask the people, and the people will be able to tell. And from there we close that. The second point is, if the National Assembly feel like they are doing things for the people, one, the people want a constitution, but secondly, to come out and say we are doing it on behalf of the people. Now we already asked the people to say that they say that they want it. Two, they did not agree with the decision you took before. So therefore, what decisions you're going to take this time again? Because at least we need to ensure political leaders are accountable. And so for us, basically, I mean, as an advocate, the survey was that. If I come and say Sait Matty say, Marr Nyang say, who will listen to anyone, because we are only one voice.
Yeah.
But we go out across the country and ask everybody, and people can go do the same thing that we did and hear the conversation.
Marr, your Gambia organized series of consultations, but I think the last one was the constitution that we want. And, we discussed it here. You were disappointed that all political actors didn't come. I also checked with you whether, because the minister had said they were going to gazette, because we would expect that civil society, if not anybody, but civil society will be engaged, especially your organization have spearheaded, getting the actors together. I remember having Mr. Dabo here, and he said, the last consultation we were at was at the one that Gambia participated in.
We were there.
So when the minister came out, when this constitution was gazetted, the minister came out and said there were consultations. And I think that is for a lot of actors, that's where the problem starts. And I'm thinking, we should have a way of getting out of there, but that should be addressed first. Civil society, the minister said, were engaged, political actors, but I think GDC have said they were not. They have even called out some of the statements that the Minister of Justice have said that what happened in Nigeria, and even here, they have said it's misleading. UDP said it's misleading. Even Gambia for All, Bibi Dabo's team also said the same. Tango said it's misleading. Now, with that kind of situation, what's your reaction when the minister gazetted, made a statement, and then all these political actors are coming and saying all of this, including the Tango and all the civil society?
I think to start with, the process that was employed by the Minister of Justice and the Cabinet in amending this 2020 draft was really opaque. It was not transparent. Consultations were not meaningful. They pick and choose who they want to consult in terms of the civil society, because Tango is the umbrella body.
Yeah.
Normally, whatever they do, they send it to Tango. Tango will now communicate it to us, civil society.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Ministry of Justice, in certain engagement, they will reach out to you directly. To those engagements. It was not done. Myself and civil society, we really did not know anything that was going on in this constitutional reform process. We don't. Tango made a statement, and we stand by the statement that Tango made. Let them come out and then tell us, because some of the organizations that they are talking about, I think so far, Tango, in consultation with Tango, I think they mentioned 1 or 2 people that have confirmed that they were engaged in Abuja. In Abuja, and when Jonathan also came in here, having a conversation with, but these were on contentious issues, but not what is going to be done. So we omit this, and that was not done. And I believe it's the same position with political parties and also religious groups. So that's not how constitutional building process is done. If you see the reason why you are having a lot of rejection, outright rejection from political parties, from citizens, is because number one, the process, right? Some is not even about the content. Personally, myself, I have read the Constitution, everything, the 2020 and another the 2024. I've read everything. They are good and bad in both.
Yeah.
You understand? But people cannot consume it because of the way the process is done. That's why they call it the Dawda Jar of Barrow papers. So it wasn't done. That they have made a very big error. And in the press conference, I keep hearing the Minister of Justice saying that is the position of the government. That is the position of the government. It's not about the government.
It's about the people.
And the government is going to go out. Adam Barrow will go out. You, Minister of Justice, will go out. Lawyer Dabo will not be here. Wow. But same political life is so they're all going to go out.
Yeah.
This 1997 constitution, Jammeh is out. Yeah. We're still using this 1997 constitution. The 1970 constitution, Jawara left. We were still using until Jammeh changed. So it's not about this is the position of the government. So that's where they've erred, and they have erred very badly in the constitution. And this is without prejudice to all the good things that are in the constitution, because there are certain good things you will find in the 2024 that are not in the 2020 draft. But certain things that you do in constitutional building will eclipse all the good things that you have done. For example, there are certain parts that are in fact worse than the 1997 constitution in the 2024 draft, because the 1994 constitution provides for the president to nominate 5 people in parliament. Right? Not only did they maintain that position, but they have added an extra layer for the president to recall nominated members. So at any time, the president can insert and eject parliamentarians. That's not how a democracy works. And the Minister of Justice should know better.
Because the Supreme Court ruled on that.
They don't. Like he said, that's the position of the government. The Supreme Court made a very good ruling. That is the issue of separation of powers. The executive has its own powers. The National Assembly has its own powers. In fact, there are rulings in which the National Assembly powers have been checked by the Supreme Court. That's how democracy works. But you cannot say a president can inject someone else in parliament and can remove that person at will. That is worse than the 1997 constitution. There was no consultation on that, and there were no consensus on that. So and
that was not even any of the contentious issues that were raised in the 2020
it was
draft.
Everyone, I think most people agreed that yes, the speaker and the deputy speaker should be elected by parliament. They should not be nominated. And the minister also keeps saying we have been doing this and it has not been a problem. It just goes back to what Sait said. You come here, you see a water, you have not even tested the water, you drink it. But in this case, we have tested the water. We knew how bad it has been during Jammeh era. We knew how bad it has been under Adam Barrow's era. Because, in fact, both Adam Barrow and both NPP and UDP, they all tried to use it, because even the UDP, there were certain people that cross-carpeted and they want to recall them.
Yeah, yes.
But the Supreme Court, the court said you cannot do it because they are elected.
Yeah,
the same thing, Adam Barrow, you nominated someone else, the person is doing the job right, and you want to recall the person, the court said you cannot do it. So we already have a precedent set by our honorable court, and you want to deviate that and say this is the position of our government. So now, I don't want to talk about all the bad things.
But what are the other things that you have issues, you have concerns around this compared to?
There's so many other concerns in the 2024 draft. For example, the 2024 draft has given a requirement in terms of a minister. You have to have a tertiary education, educational experience.
Yeah.
They have removed that, and they said a minister should have a post-secondary education and be able to speak English. That is catastrophic. Give that person who graduated from commerce at any school, you give that person the position of a minister of finance and ask that person run the economy or run the fiscal policy of the country. That is going to be catastrophic. Because if you don't know how the issues work, if you don't have any technical knowledge about those issues, the people that are in there, in fact, they are not going to respect you because you have no knowledge about what they are talking about. And you are the person that will be called to parliament to defend the budget. So that was uncalled for, and they have made a deviation from that. And several others, the 2020 draft made it a requirement for the spouse of the president to disclose her assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission. They removed that in the 2024 draft. Now, let's go, I think we had this conversation, you and I here. Let's go back to the history. Yahya Jammeh, through the Mariam Yahya Jammeh Trust Fund, in which Zainab Jammeh was the chair. It was through that account that they bought this Potomac mansion in the US. The Fatoumata Barrow Foundation, that is where TBA sent the 35 million. And today I was reading in the papers, Fatoumata Barrow and the president were having, and the TBA were having side meeting and in fact lunch with TBA in China.
In China, yes.
And that TBA also is given more than $1 billion contract after that by the government of the Gambia.
But that one was through the World Bank. Yeah.
But wait a minute. But this TBA, before that World Bank contract, what preceded was that 35 million.
Yeah. The first,
so you always have to
transfer,
make the connection. The other thing is, today, obviously, we've seen the wife of the president in one dinner collects $20 million is pledged. Right? She was not going to have that before when she was not the first lady.
Ordinary citizen,
Where is that money going to be used? It's a foundation, and that foundation obviously belongs to the wife of the president, but she's also an exposed person. If those monies are collected, where are they going to? Are they going to her personal use, or is they are going to the foundation's use? For the foundation is just a charity; it's not part of the government. So it is uncalled for to remove that. For the vice president and the ministers, that I will understand.
That I have, okay. My biggest issue in this is the ministers and their spouses are required to declare their assets when they assume office. But after office, they are not required to declare their assets. Ministers. But the same constitution is saying National Assembly members and judges are required. The minister's explanation in this is, I have the story. He tried to defend this by saying, you know how what is subjective to what, I don't know what he even said. But my argument is, National Assembly members are lawmakers. We don't give them any budget to oversee. They don't negotiate contracts on our behalves. They don't have a department they oversee. Judges are there just ruling on court cases and others. They don't have any budget, but ministers, we give them billions and billions to oversee. They negotiate huge amounts of contracts on our behalves. They manage assets and portfolios on our behalf. Now, why would you subject a National Assembly member to declare their assets after leaving office? But the minister, you said, you don't want people to be targeted wrongly and all this stuff. What is the difference here? This is the explanation I want to ask the Minister of Justice. Can you understand the rationale there yourself? Is there anything that differentiates these two officials?
So, when coming to office, obviously, they should declare their assets, and they should renew their asset declaration every 2 years, right? That is what they should do. Now, if this will be controversial, I wouldn't have any problem with a minister, a National Assembly, or a judge leaving office without declaring their assets. It becomes cumbersome, especially to the entity that is going to be administering that. However, if, for example, the Anti-Corruption Commission is suspicious of a minister that has left office, right? At the time of leaving their office, right, all the assets that they have declared, the unexplained wealth, meaning the assets that they have acquired, that they cannot explain how they get this.
But this is the problem. What the problem is, before you even go further, remember the anti-corruption bill. That unexplained wealth, then go again.
I know, but you know that still. But they see nakatuda. We have this the Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Act. For money and fatigue. Yep.
So, but the thing is,
mango by head because they're gonna Minister of Justice so they go again. We still have other laws, and he was right.
He was right.
He was right. We have the criminal code. We have that sanctions official and unofficial corruption. The Anti-Money Laundering Act, they can also sanction that. So the Anti-Corruption Commission can still investigate that particular minister. So that's the reason why I have to say that I don't have much problem about when they are leaving, they have to declare asset. Because what's going to happen? Today a president appoints Sait. Today. Next 2 weeks. Mufaya ko. Mu andi wat kenen. So all of those, they overwhelmed the Anti-Corruption Commission to an extent that they will not be effective.
Yeah, competent.
Even the declaration of the assets of parliamentarian candidates.
What? Last time we had 495 something.
So, Legi, this is the 2020 draft position. It was saying that all the candidates will have to submit their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission, 1. 2, the Anti-Corruption Commission will have to investigate it. 3, the Anti-Corruption Commission will have to make a report for all of those candidates and certify whether their declaration is authentic or not. It's practically impossible for them to achieve that. So that they have improved on that. So the concern here for me is when a minister comes into office, I wouldn't also have a problem with the spouse of the minister, because still the money laundering, if you launder money through your spouse, so you cannot even achieve that goal, because one, money laundering is very tricky. You would register the assets of your spouse. However, the money that you are laundering is not going through your spouse, it's going through your cousin, it's going to
somebody else,
a family friend. And you launder that money, but that person is not required to declare their assets. So you should not only look at the spouse, but all the others, because those that engage into money laundering, they are not stupid. You understand? So that is what I have to say regarding this asset. But I strongly agree the position of the 2020 draft, which is the president and her spouse, on his or her spouse, should declare their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission. You understand? So and also you ask the other issues that are not progressive in the Constitution. The 2020 draft made it a requirement for a Chief Justice to be a Gambian. The 2024 draft did not make it a requirement for Gambian. We saw what happened during the Jammeh era. How mercenary judges, and in fact we had foreign Chief Justices in this country. So, and then in the succession of the presidency, if the president retires, the vice president is not there, the speaker is not there, the Chief Justice
becomes the...
Now, in this case, the Chief Justice, if in the case of the Chief Justice is not a Gambian.
That's what,
a senior. So it makes it tricky. In fact, what makes them anticipate that in this advanced world, the legal-minded people that we have this country, right, that they cannot qualify. We cannot have Gambia that will be qualified to hold the position of a Chief Justice. We don't want our judiciary to be, controlled by the executive because they brought someone else from somewhere that might not have any interest in how strong our judiciary is. You insert that person to be a Chief Justice, and that person dance to the tune of the president, just like what happened with Jammeh. For me, the question that I was asking myself was, is it because Honorable Hassan Jallow have done so well in strengthening this judiciary that he has made his judiciary, or the courts have made rulings against the president that they are now convinced that they cannot control the judiciary because of the independence of the judiciary. Now you want to make this a requirement. We are moving. We are advancing. We are not looking backwards. Why do they have to drag us backwards?
Also, the judiciary, their budget in this 2024 draft should go to the presidency, and the president will have a comment. He cannot edit it, but he will have a comment attached to it and send it to the National Assembly. How progressive is that? Knowing in this day and age, we don't do anything but politics in that National Assembly is a political house, right? If the president says, oh, judiciary, the judges send bill, you think which of the National Assembly members will vote against what the president said if they are in the ruling government? Do you think that is something you have issues with, or you're okay with that?
So the judiciary is an independent institution. I think currently, I need to get back to the 1997 Constitution and read the process, whether they submit their budget directly to the National Assembly or through the president where the president will only make a comment. I know for independent institutions like IEC and others, the president can do that.
Yeah.
But however, I think best practice will be for the judiciary to prepare their budget and then submit it to Parliament. It goes to FPAC. Now, Parliament, through the Parliamentary Budget Office, they also have a budget office that can advise them. If they start seeing huge deviations of the judiciary's budget from the previous year, you know that was controversial in the 2020 draft, right? If the judiciary's budget this year is this, next year the Parliament cannot reduce the budget to be below that amount, right? How about if you are in a state of crisis, economic crisis, COVID-19 and others, that happens, and the law is telling Parliament that this is what it says. So that was also what is controversial in the 2020 draft. So for me, the judiciary is still a good practice for them to prepare their budget, send it to Parliament, Parliament review it and edit, because there are three organs of government. Parliament's budget doesn't go to the ministry or the president for review. It stays within Parliament.
Yeah. So the judiciary should not go.
The judiciary should, their budget should go to Parliament. The executive, though, is the ones in which both the legislature and the judiciary put checks on the executive. So, that's the reason why all of their budgets will go through the legislature. So, I think, to answer your question, it should be a best practice for the judiciary's budget to go to Parliament.
Finally, before I go to Dr. Gajigo, succession, when the president resigns, dies, or decide to leave office or whatever, before the 2020 draft says we have election in 90 days, but the 2024, the vice president, after that, speaker or the chief justice, MC Cham says the president's son can be our president. our president, if the president decides, wins election, appoint his son vice president. Who can say you cannot? Because the person is older and have all the requirements. Appoint him, and then he leaves. Then he continues. So
those are all probabilities, but you cannot take them outside the equation.
But do you think that is something that, I know, in countries where you have running mates, of course, in the US, in Kenya, they have running mates. So they have that kind of provisions in their constitution. Do you think we should go back to, we should do that instead of stay with what the 2020 proposes?
I think as a democratic state, the one that is in the highest office of the land should represent the majority of the will of the people. If the president resigns and leaves office, right, there's that 90 days period, the IEC should do, through all the other institutions that are responsible and have a say in this, to conduct an election as much as possible. Let me give you the risks associated with the position of the 2024 draft. For example, today, if Barrow wants to leave office in 2026, but he knows it is only through him, for example, if he stands in an election, that he's going to win, but he wants to leave office. Now, he brings in someone else as a vice president, right, that will succeed him if he leaves office. Then it becomes problematic because you vote for Barrow, Barrow gets out, now you get a president who the people don't endorse. And you have 50+1 in the 2024. 50+1 meaning 50% or more
of the Gambian
of voters, registered voters, Gambian people that have
would
voted,
have approved that presidency
and voted on that day.
Yeah, that voted.
Yeah.
That candidate must receive 50+1 of those votes.
Yeah.
Now you are having a president who did not in fact receive 0.001% of the votes.
Yeah, that's.
We go back to our neighbors, the experience that they have had. Senegal, this was the issue with Abdoulaye Wade. The intention of Wade running for a third term wasn't for him,
It was for his son,
but for the son. And there were analysts that were saying, if he was to be elected, because he was already getting old, he will step down and then allow the son to continue.
Yeah.
I don't know what the existing laws of Senegal at the time were in governing that. But yes, I think that should not be something else that we should. And then we have to know that we are very dangerous people Our vice president changes at any time. For the protection of the president and his well-being, you can bring in a vice president today. Mu def la dara nga faatu wala nga febar munatuloo ko, and then the person steps in. Steps in because he has let's say for example 2026, 2027, you appoint a vice president. Mu def la dara, you become unsound mind. Could be what? One of the requirements for the president to vacate his office. Being unhealthy.
Yeah, your culture ada.
Yeah, no. The man what take they should not be myopic.
Yeah.
They should also hanga yene sa nga def ne yang advance interest ne ka fekk yang color.
Yang color, yeah.
So that should be removed. Anyone that comes, the vice president, let the person after 90 days go to election and be elected.
Yeah.
So I think that should be the position that should be maintained in the 2020 draft.
Last one, but IEC 2020
It has to be
confirmed by the National Assembly, and that has been removed. I mean, for me, ministers, I'm not a
we can compromise.
I can compromise that, but positions like the IGP, the IEC, I think state institutions for us. Problem began among strong institutions. And if we're able to build those strong institutions like the IEC, the Office of the IGP, and others, right? Our judicial system didn't make headways. And I think this is one very important, especially Nakalende elected soon president, number one citizen. I think, Fofu is something that, what is your take on that?
No, definitely elections are very, very sensitive. And there are so many countries that cost the lives of so many people, citizens, that were protesting against the outcome of the elections because of the person that the president has put to that position to administer elections. We've seen in our neighboring countries what has happened, especially in 2010, right? You cannot, monopolize or use these sensitive institutions at will. Elections are very sensitive. Anybody that should be the head of that particular institution has to be confirmed by the National Assembly. And we need to understand what confirmation of National Assembly is. You have president that is elected by the people. Fine. You have independent institutions, for example, IEC, that administers elections. So if you talk about the confirmation, you are looking at because the president is one party, the National Assembly is multi-party.
Yes.
You have different political parties that are represented. You have minority groups that are represented. You have women that are represented. You also have independent candidates that are representing our very people from the constituency. So if you bring a candidate, it is the responsibility of the National Assembly to grill that person and look at that person's competence, look at that person's affiliation with the president on his party. You remember when the president wanted to make someone else a vice chair, the UDP picked it up and others, and ultimately they removed the person. But that person, if the person had gone through parliament, you think the parliament will approve it?
Yeah, even the ministers that they said have double citizenship, if they had gone through confirmation, that would have been flat.
Definitely, and you look at
parliament.
No, wait, hold on the ombudsman.
Yes.
During the vice president Toure's term.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Right? But Barrow was the president. Why Aninenko parliamentarians no.
And they approve Nenko?
Yeah, they reject one.
First one we got them to reject, second one and go. So in this case sometimes it is not political.
Yes.
So for me, I think it is more progressive to have the IEC chair to be confirmed by the National Assembly, and then there is security of tenure for that party. So anyone that is there will have peace of mind that I can conduct my job independently without fear or favor.
Yes.
Why someone will compensate someone else and then put that person to that position? There are certain people that are of no integrity. And that is the risks that this draft is giving us. I know we've been talking about the negative ones, And I will allow my colleagues also to...
I'll come to the good ones. Doctor, what is your impression about the draft, the 2024 good ones and the bad? What is your impression? You think, what do you think?
Well, I doubt I can improve upon
what Marr
what he has said. I mean, I think in terms of the key parts, the problematic parts, he's highlighted them all.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, basically, as anyone would say, I mean, the 2021 had its issues.
Yes.
You know, but this 2024 one, I mean, all the key points he mentioned, everyone should be concerned about the lack of consultations. So some of these key parts that have been taken, either modified or removed completely, or other things that are inserted there that are very problematic. I mean, especially this last part about the IEC asset declarations. These are all things we should be concerned about. But I mean, also, I think we should, you know, okay, we are in year 8 of the Barrow regime. So I ask myself, at this point now, we have a very good idea of the character of the Barrow regime. What was our expectation when the new constitution came out now? What was our expectation? I know what was our expectation at the beginning of this government was that we were expecting a better constitution. 2020 constitution, even though it wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, it was a huge improvement over 1997 constitution. So I think if it had been subjected to a referendum, it would have passed. Yes. And I think, you know, as his survey has shown, people are looking forward to a new constitution. But after all that has taken place since this new government came to power, the fact that the transition wasn't taken with seriousness. We've had the Janneh Commission; its recommendations wasn't treated with the seriousness it deserves. We had TRRC. Games are still being played with its recommendation, and we have seen what has been done now with CRC's recommendation. These are the 3 key aspects. I mean, there are other parts of a transitional regime or process, but as far as prominence goes, there are a few things more prominent than these 3 things. We've seen all of that. Yeah. We've seen there are a lot of other things that happen. So is anyone surprised that we have a constitution that was done in bad faith? Because this is bad faith, not doing it with enough consultation, bringing changes that have clear political motive, particularly with regards to term limit, making sure that it's not retroactive, that it means the current regime can run for another 2 terms. So nobody should be surprised, given all what has transpired, that we have a constitution like this. So the question I would want to ask myself as a non-legal expert, non-constitutional expert, I'm a layman as far as this matter is concerned, is, okay, where do we go from now?
Where do we go?
Yeah, where do we go from now? So I say, by all means, let's do a complete analysis of everything that's wrong with it so that people know what has happened. There is a documentation and a historical record of everything that has been done poorly. For whatever reason, is clear for everyone. So this is why this analysis by him and others is very important. But then, let me go back to that question. Where where do we go from now, and what should we have, given 8 years has passed, what should we have expected from the Adam Barrow regime? Should we have expected a new constitution based on good faith that is done with a real objective of transitioning from a dictatorship into a multi-party democracy? For me, taking all the things that I've taken into account, I'm even surprised it is this good. Yes, I'm even surprised there are some positive things you can find there.
At least they have 50 plus 1.
So,
and time limit.
So to me, is the expectation of any ordinary citizen here, as far as this constitution is concerned, is, okay, does it still give us an opportunity come next election to elect a new government so that we are in a better position to have a proper constitution or not? If that answer is yes, let's forget the charade. Let's vote for it. Not that because it's good and acceptable, but because we want to hasten to reach a process where we can get a better constitution. Because with this government, you are not going to get a good constitution, and they are willing to let us go back to the 97 constitution as opposed to having something better. That is not their goal, and if interpreting the rational interpretation of everything that has transpired here is that this government is very cynical and is working in bad faith and is and wants to have a constitution that favors Adama Barrow to be at minimum 20 years. Now, I want people to be very clear about this. People think that they are putting this time limit maybe in 10, if we are, let's grant the possibility that Adama Barrow wins next 2 terms. Does anyone, if you really think about what has transpired, you think Adama Barrow regime will, after two terms, will not play another game and want to extend it? You know, I hope we never reach that scenario.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to say here is that it's important to think about next steps. We know that no matter what discussions take place now, this government, because of the bad faith it has done, the cynicism it has deployed in this process, is not going to bring anything that is positive. It's not going to bring anything that doesn't give it maximum leverage and maximum political advantage. So we have the 50+1. I say let's pass this constitution. Not because it's good, it's bad. A lot of bad things, and all of the things he and any people highlighted, they are there. But we do it with our eyes open, and we give the country an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, let's do our part. Civil society, other political parties, if they are confident in their platform, let them approach the Gambian people, say what is wrong with it, tell the Gambian people, give everyone now an opportunity to get the constitution you deserve. And then we can move on. But to have any expectation that existing discussions or deliberations is going to cause this government to revise this and remove all of the bad things, replace it with the good ones, and come to something close to 2020, it is a fantasy.
I saw your question. I saw your question. And you know, it's exactly what he's saying.
And that is very important before we go to our lecturer, because we're having this. Because he has already touched something very, very important.
I saw you touch it too. Yeah.
The next steps. Should we accept the 1997 constitution to that of the 2024? And I see people campaigning outright rejection of the 2024 draft.
I was one of them. I am one of them. I'm just going to admit, but listening to him, I'm just getting a little...
No, definitely. Because who wins? Who wins? That we reject the 2024 draft, Barrow still is okay with the 1997 constitution. He can run as much as he wants.
He has no problem.
But just simple majority.
Yeah, but if this constitution, people also need to understand that it is a draft. It is going to be a bill. And like any other bill, as far as we have taken this parliamentary approach, once it gets to parliament, it can be amended. Now, there are certain NPP parliamentarians that are not even aware of what was happening. And I started talking to some that are not also in agreement with certain things that the Minister of Justice have introduced into this bill. So, what I'm saying is, the NPP, the UDP, and the APRC, like you said, they should be like this. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt in this case. We all become one, get to the consideration stage, and we start amending. There they can amend. And you can strike compromise and consensus. I know people like Madi will say, no.
Let me tell you what, I'm just going to tell you what last week I had 2 parliamentarians, senior members of both parties. Abdullah is the majority leader, and Alhaji Ma is the minority leader. And Abdullah keep telling Alhaji, let's go to committee stage, and Alhaji's Dawo keeps saying, no, why did you refuse to go to committee stage? Because you know you have the numbers. I cannot dictate any amendments at committee stage because you overpower me at committee stage. So I kept saying, Alhaji, I think you should go to committee stage. But from listening to what he was saying, if they go to committee stage, NPP has more members in those committee stages. What makes you believe that this is what the president wants, this is what the cabinet wants? NPP will change anything. We have seen that. You know, example of the FGM bill. All NPP members, 90% of them were against it. They wanted to, they wanted to support this Almame bill. but why bring you Bugana contour, when then my massive Fatmata Jawara, your own advocates, and then you know, you then go vote. Because naturally people align with their parties. So this is the argument the Alaji Dabo brought here. And I listened to both parties, and Alaji said the reason why NPP refused to go to committee stage in 2020 is because they know that we have the numbers and we will dictate most of the amendments. Now they have the numbers. What makes you believe that they will change anything that the president wants? So I know what you're saying. Amendments will happen there, but the reality of it, amendments happen.
But we're also taking the risk. If you're saying, if we are assuming that is what is going to continue with this constitution, that's why we are going to campaign for this total rejection, then when are we going to have this constitutional reform? And we also need to look at what is at stake at that. That's why I'm saying the NPP and UDP should come like this. It's up to them for Gambia to have a constitution or not. And this Afrobarometer survey, since before 2020, majority of Gambians keep saying that they want a constitution. So it should not be NPP or UDP to not give the Gambians that opportunity. That's why I said the process bad. Now let's look at what is good in it. Let's sit and discuss, right? And then collectively achieve this constitutional reform. And the issue of the retroactive clause, right? He said it. Now they have removed that. And for me,
I'm good with that.
The same thing. Who guarantees Adam Barrow that 2026?
Go to the polls.
He's going to win.
For me, that
if we do not get this constitution, you know, we have we have a history of political inconsistency in this country from across majority political parties in this country. The risk is 2026, for example, miracle happens and we have a candidate that is not from NPP or in fact UDP.
Like Adam Barrow in 2016.
The person who come in and said, well, twice this country have tried to have a constitution and you never pass. So it's going to be a waste of result. Why don't we continue with the 1997 constitution? That person can also sit here for the longest time and can use those excessive executive powers. So we have the 50+1. We have the term limits. We have the creation of independent institutions. We have the disclosure of assets. At least there are some good in it. Let us put pressure on parliamentarians and our political parties. Because the same thing that they were trying to do with the 2020, they were saying, let it pass through the committee stage so that we can do the amendments. And I keep saying, what could have been done, those amendments that could have been done in the 2020, let this also pass, and we see eye to eye and achieve this, this constitutional reform. The executive is at fault. But let us not also fall to the trap of the executive.
Do they really want a constitution?
To say, take it or leave it. Now, if we reject it, we will still have what is happening. So for me, I think our politicians, I know they have been very smart, but sometimes your opposition knows how to pinch your weaknesses. So I think let's put pressure on parliamentarians, let's engage parliamentarians. And I'm certain, 100% certain, that this 2024 draft will, if it gets to parliament, it will be amended. It will be amended, and majority part of it will be amended. And it is for us to also know that we cannot, and it is impossible for the Gambians to have 100% perfect rule book. The 2020 was not perfect. 1970 wasn't perfect. 1997 wasn't perfect. Like any other country. For example, today, you look at, in fact, the US. Someone else with a spouse divorce half of that person's wealth given to the spouse. Now, the more money you get, even if the child is 1 year old, the more money you get, they're asking you to remove that money. It might be unreasonable to our context, but that is the law in there. But does that prevent the US from having a working democracy? Even though the people perceive that this is an unreasonable law, it should be taken out. So that's why you have marriage business people marry celebrity in order to get money from it. So, but the constitution is it protecting those innocent husbands. So we cannot have that perfect constitution. We cannot have it. So we need to strike balance. If we keep saying let's reject it outright, fine. The biggest winner is NPP. That's what people fail to understand. So let's look at what is good in this. And whatever happened, Barrow will just sit and say, well, this is what people decide. But if you don't get it, 2026, if Barrow sits again and run and be elected, then we cannot also point fingers on them.
Say,
Uma started.
Fima buga wax moy. Marr lim wax ak doctor, man, to be honest, I was one of those people who said, you know what, back to sender. Because number one, I was one of those people who said that. Because number one, I felt like, there are stakeholders in everything. You know, the fact that danga fok ne ya gëna upp doole rek xam nga, this is about, man jaay doole man non la ko gisee. Da ngeen ñu jaay yene executive rek nañ jaay dëkk bi yëpp doole ñu defal lu ñu ne ñu teg leen ko jël leen ko wara ngeen bàyyi. But again, if you look at it from another angle, it's like I saw Marr's question on Twitter, 2024 or 1997. And I sat down, I was talking to a friend, he is crazy. He's like, we don't care. But we will stay with in 1997. And I said, but have you thought about this also? And his argument was, if it goes to committee stage, NPP will obviously do what the presidency wants. That's what they will advance. They didn't change one or two things, but majority of the things will stay there. And I said, can we, if we have a new government, at least we have 50 plus. If Barrow fails to get 50%, and then people come together, maybe we'll have a new government. Maybe we can edit further, new government. And the person's answer to me was, governments these people are all the same.
Yep.
Whoever comes in, protect Bobam. What guarantee do you have na yow tay loi bi mo xex tay elek loi bobu dina ko buga defar du ko buga defar bi on lolou lañ fi gis Barrow mo fi wax ne man am a firm believer of 2 terms ni la wax tay mom moy sick for 4 terms si constitution bi passé
started with three years.
Yeah. So what makes you believe ne su dé Ousainou Darboe mo ñew mom mi wax ne li ak li ndax dina buga change lolou because gis nga nit su nekké si power rek daf tay sopéku lu bari lolou lañ gis ci African politician. Now, what's the way forward in this? Mess bi amna nañ leen ko wax bañ ko xam dëkk bi xam ne mess amna wax nañ leen ko waaye ndax tam dañ war a stay si mess boobu ndax lan lañ war a def génn si lii we have to come out of something.
But xam nga suma ko yeneen daf ma dee tooñ tey sax ma doon call mu ne ma naka seen constitution bi
waaw
mu ne constitution yi nit moom every 5 years
waaw
wécci dina am so moom loolu la ñu nekk di tooñee but lii moo laa wan ne ñun nit leen and we have an idea of something that we want to create but lu tax mënuñu toog table bi ñu xool ku nekk lan moo nekk sa idea lii nga gis ñu seet comme maa lu ma war a ñu nekk ko am why is it that Gambians cannot build consensus ñu loolu mu nekk suñu biggest challenge parce que lu xew is so if you look at the theory of small state dañ la dee woon ne comme ñu ngi bind benn paper bu yàggul I think it was published earlier this year managing political change in a small African state and luñ doon wax si paper boobu moo nekk ne if you look at Gambia's 3 crises suñu am from independence 1981 1994 and even right now the most recent crisis and constitutional process bi mun nañ ko ooyee crisis because of lack of engagement bu nekk di am and we saw ne small states 2 things more for they exist in what they call consensus building and conflict. So ñaari characteristics they exist in their society throughout. Conflict that exists will hardly find time to agree on certain point, but when it comes to an outsider, pour ko xamne daf ñu bëgg ñëw stop ñepp dañoo organize suñu bop xolal tangara today internally there are people who don't want it but everybody right now is rallying to support that. That's one of the things you need to do. But the problem is why can't I see that in a constitutional process? Consensus building. And in many places then they believe that small states must use this approach to build consensus. But in this country we don't do that. And we stop doing that. That's what I'm going to say. Because if you look at time independence, I have to go back to our history. Because constitutional building started there. Never started in 1940 something when British decided to say that New York independence. So it was done gradually. gradually until we get 1964 we get independent constitution. But why do we have a constitution? Because all the political actors, man tay kéro mako won si Marr activity ba. Why is it that the founding fathers of this country were able, despite all the negative and politics gonna grab with everything? Because the British divided the country into colony and protectorate. You folk nañ ñu dëkk Banjul ñu don't enjoy everything. You take a neglect. But that was the colonial policy of the British. It wasn't because of the people of Banjul that wanted to live that way. But that was the colonial policy. But the people, the way they were interpreting it, Monica Ñi they enjoy because they had the schools, they had everything. The people in the rural community were not getting anything. So what do more of PPP ñëwé mu am that power? But the message mooy PPP, Gambia Muslim Congress, DCA, Democratic Party mooy Reverend Jesse Faye, Kerr Fatou, all of them, bu Gambia waxee ne dafa bëgg independent. What did they do? They all formed a coalition. There was one coalition in this country. All getting Gambia that independence. Because everybody, all those political leaders, they said in their constitution that they wanted independence for the country. The only difference was, one, PPP wanted it so quick, you could on one like step by step. If you look at the first process of getting a Republican constitution, it failed. Because after independence was what united them. Okay, this is what unites us, let's get that. But republicanism was seen as not, we have to build trust before we move completely from the British into a Republican constitution. Even the people that were in the same coalition for independence, Gaba Jahumpa, Kerr Fatou, they went on the opposition, started opposing the 1965 Republican constitution, and it failed. But eventually, when the Jawara was able to unite society, in 1970 Gambia had a constitution. And then that time it was so easy. Already, these guys, they were, so more than when I mentioned that. Why was it that group of political leaders, if you compare them with so foreign group of political leaders, they were less educated, had less opportunities, but they were interested in this country. But that's the difference that I see. More than a constitution, Santud Baro, Santud Jau, Santud Nyang, Santud Ken, it is Gambia. And we cannot be coming here, leave the whole discussion to political parties. I'm not going to leave my conversation to political parties. They are there. We are paying them. We are the ones that are electing them. They are there. Of course, they belong to a party, but the party should be for the state.
What do we do now?
The movement,
the role of civil society in all of this, because people have to come together. You forge a way. And I think for me, it should start with the government.
But now,
take responsibility.
Government, Roman and government league.
Okay.
You see, government has done like he said.
I said, in as much as government definitely know that hamgane, hey, ni sani kartabi, ni wara edit constitution B, si assembly. They belong to political parties.
Yes, Fatou, why time in your
why man mayo? Do you deglu?
Hang on, feel like heavy for one.
Look at my, so we say, my opinion is, we have to engage these political parties first.
Yeah.
Because they, Ousseynou Dabo, moy waxa supporters am ñu déglu ko. Xam nga ko na fi commencé suñ ko fa génné duñ ko laat. Tay gaay UDP yépp man la fa. NPP Baro daf leen ne li la bëgga. Ñom fofu leen taxaw. Now if those leaders are not talking to their supporters, because su passé fele xamal ne dafa dem referendum.
And the UDP su nangute constitution bi du jall.
So we need to have a conversation.
Fi la UDP wara génné NPP.
Okay.
Pour ñu gën leen.
Wow.
NPP jël leen yoon.
Bo xamni waaw.
Bi nga xamantene is unconventional. Gambien bëgguñu ko.
Ñun ñoo leen gënal li.
Waaw. Andi ngeen constitution yoon anam bi nga xamantene ñi soxloñu ko. So xam na ne because UDP dafa waxoon ne position bi la jël su fa gaay génne benn comma.
Duñ ko laal.
They won't accept that constitution. So they did what they have to di jaay doole kon nako waxee. Because ñom ñu nekk in government. Now that should not push the UDP to the wall. I mean to the wall.
Yeah.
UDP lu mu war a def. mu gën leen si xel.
Won ne ñun ñoo leen.
Waaw ñun intérêt si Gambie la nekk di seet. andi ngeen constitution si anam bi nga xamante ne jàdduwut. However, because ñun intérêt si dëkk bi la ñoo xool dinañ oo suñu député yi nañ leen gëstu constitution bi lu baax ñu waxtaane ko ak gaay ñu maintain lu bon ñu waxtaane gaay ñu wan leen ne askan mi moo ñu tax a jóg loolu dafay gannaa jox naka tudda standing
society
of UDP into the people in the hearts of the people ñu bokk UDP yëpp dañoo appreciate that waaye fu mu nekk nii nit ñi
dañoo xool ne political
nit ñi suñu gisee ne ok 2020 NPP ñoo tax constitution bi demul 2024 NPP jël neen yoon UDP tam ñu ne bokkuñu si nit ñi dinañ mere ñaar these two parties and they will never forget about them. So they should not deny majority of Gambians what they want. So this is the opportunity of UDP to be better and be there into the hearts of, in fact, non-UDPians to appreciate UDP.
Man la don jema wax sax comme politique haga yene ñun dañ am political strategy. Comme UDP mu ne duñ laal if any comment. You know sometimes tamit dañ wara fair tuuti. Yeah, because if UDP was in government, not nañ is a bill without touching any comma. If a bill that is rejected in that, didn't laal comma. But you have a political statement la. Why recently I'm not being elephant, so I'm going to share fair because I saw UDP's commitment and I saw that they wanted it to go to the committee stage. And recently I also see Benin statement. Motadama Buga UDP tamid, you come out clearly. Look at the constitution living. You want to send position clearly more living. Because right now what I see with this one is the position of NPP. This is what the kind of government that they want to establish in this country. Whether it's they call it government, but this is NPP's position. Well, is it parallel? No, okay, this is what they have done because it's going to parliament. Political parties because I don't think that they will disagree on entire thing.
No. At least 85 to 90% of what is in the 2020 draft is maintained.
Why tell me the constitutional making process in 1965? We followed different process to 1970. 1970, them na parliament vote, then we knew our senate. Come like what is following. 1997, we had a constitution, parliament was not there, people went straight to referendum. So right now there is parliament and we are fixing that. So come Marlum Wahregman, that is the solution for me. And the UDP strategy, and if you look at our Soviet most people believe in the NPP, they are more or less committed to the constitution than UDP. And we have to say it because we are interested in a constitution. If they are happy, they are happy. If they are not happy, you say business. But the people, what they want is a constitution. And in civil society, this is what we have to amplify. And we have to amplify to an extent, they hear it. Why tell me, Maluma de one niti sayo ne kamoine. You don't want to need responsibility for a talk for the setan. Oh, keep party de la boka. You have to take party bogus munyo fi put niti mota munyo. So tey su fekkee ne da nga select sa representative mu belong to a political party tey constitution boo xam ne you are interested mu ñëw kii mu laa wane kii lii la defoon kii lii la defoon and when it comes to seen vehicles yi doo gis benn division there was no division and is man maa ngi doon support vehicle bi fii and this was what I was waiting for I was waiting for this one I was waiting for this because seen welfare they are united while when it comes to loo xam ne is for the people everything they are united so when it comes to the people ku nekk commencé ne kii la what is that what is that so the point mooy ne we elected these people and new civil society one of the good things that am nañ tuuti xaalis and we are going to be all over the country and we will get to the communities and we'll help. We are not telling people vote wala defal lii but people must know what their responsibility is.
What is in the constitution?
Well, what is in the constitution and they need to know ne pour ñu am seen kàddu mu dugg ci biir constitution bi they need to talk to their parliamentarians and let them not go through this WhatsApp messages. Arama jekali rek man dama am lu ma xew dafa am
suñu waxee government nañu wax civil society.
Déedéet waxuñu civil society la jox la ñu butut jox la ñu dara ñun lu ñoo def man nekk
choose pour nekk civil society.
waaye man ci la
la ko nga ne den leet
xam nga lu tax moo loolu maar bés bu draft bi roté civil society dañu war a jàngal ñun because the thing is message bu njëkk a génn loolu la nit ñi day jël te the message you guys have a lot of work ahead of you if you want to change the mindset of the people because lu ñoo wax tey mooy
man xaaral ma si bara ma waxaat
yàlla baa ngi tàngale
dama tàngal mu ma wàññi
nga man dama ne NPP ñoo sànni suñ constitution bi waaye civil society defuñ seen liggéey dama ko fi wax ba sona
no 2020 moo made mistake
civil society defuñ seen liggéey
2020 ñun def na suñ mistake as civil society so gisee this time around ñu ngi jël another approach we learn from our mistakes civil society ñoo doon génn naan don't touch this constitution civil society ak activists ñoo doon call parliamentary di leen ni saaga ndey bu leen laa nii di def seen number ak seen téléphone loolu was not a good way to do the advocacy because man am na benn parliamentary nekkatu ko fa dama ko call ma wax ak moom mu ne ma you are the first person te whole day ku ma call te statuloo di may budil ndey bisu jaar yëpp dañ ma doon saaga so that was a very bad way of advocacy lobbying with parliamentarians now léegi gis nga ñun leetuñu si liggéey bi because like I said ñun depuis last year xawma year before last ñun si process bii nii ñu ngi am suñ conversation bi benn tey soo laajtee honorable Ousainou Darboe dina la wax ne am na ñu ko engage on ñu ñoo andi independent people ñu engage Ousainou Darboe te I have to appreciate the fact that suñ every engagement honorable Ousainou Darboe daf day ñëw so that shows the commitment that he has in this process he wants a constitution ñu engage NPP vice president bi suñ interlocutors engage Supreme Islamic Council ñëpp te su convergence bi xoolal Supreme Islamic Council dafa toog ñii tamit toog Christian Council te after that ba doon dem si dining ñoom ñaar si vidéo bi soo ko xoolee ñoom ñaar ñoo doon dox ngeen waxtaan so yëpp si ñun door nañ liggéey bi lu yàgg nag suñ disappointment bu am mooy ci convergence bi xam nga laajte nga ma ko woon fii nii ba ma ñëwoon dañ oo Minister of Justice ñëwuñu ñu oo NPP ñëwuñu so loolu tax ma ne la UDP dafa war a gën te UDP ñëw neen andi na representative Ousainou Darboe si boppam tamit ñëw joxe statement fii laa nekk di wane lu rafet yëpp UDP doon def si about the constitution bu nangu NPP yaaxal leen ko yaa ngi understand so
am na ku ma rectify de benn UDP member mu ne Fatou UDP did not say they will not comment suñ ko génnee duñ ko edit mu ne daf maa rectify pour ma xam loolu Abdoulaye Darboe moo ma ne ñu mu ne ñoom baro suñ laalee fekk xamuñ sa dañoo gase man maa ko ne ñu ne dañoo gase léegi yéen lan ngeen a expect mu ne the people's constitution ma xam ne 2020 loolu lañ indi suñ laalee comment sax ñoom duñ si bokka so loolu la wax so that's what I said Abdoulaye that's what your party
but that was also like man comme Marr dan la ne xaaral ma dugga fii nii because maa ngi tàngoo waaye gur ne naan because man Marr Fatou gis nga civil society civil society people kii tey mu ne start na a non-profit is civil society you are civil society everybody is civil society man this is not my civil society dama nekk fii di wax rek but my job is research I'm a lecturer loolu mooy suma profession but I am interested in our collective and ñun ñu fi nekk yëpp ñu mostly we're interested in the collective because people are professional they can be anywhere else but when you're in the collective there are certain things that you have to do why need we look dañoo lobby funds we get funds and yoo xam ne is to educate the public but you go people they don't listen to you they look at you ne feeling wala ñu see la in a different way which is okay but the reality mooy ne you cannot depend on people pour nga defar sa life you have to take responsibility and foofu laay waxee si nit yi benn political parties yi ñoom ñoo war a nekk the first point of education political education but that is the biggest problem in this country dañ lack political education fii dañ wax civil society as if na ñun ñoo nekk di civic educators we are not seeking any political leadership but what we are doing moo nekk we are trying to bring people on board all key like a convergence the constitution we want everybody said they want the constitution ñu ote leen si conversation of constitution yow boo xam ne yaa ngi plan pour gazette ko yaa ngi plan pour def loolu you cannot even come to update the public what is that Honorable Darboe was there and I was in the panel and one of the persons said am na kenn ku waxoon ne why are we going to be bothered sir maybe xëy na lii su demee sax dañ ko rejected the same and he stood up and said we have to be optimistic and I came out I put that on my social media we are interested in people that will motivate people forward for a constitution ñu build a country man this 1997 constitution I was 9 years old it did not bother me xaw ma woon lan la ma mag si lañ ma tëj si laa génn ma dem exile and I don't want it personally man that is my own personal reality and we have decided that we are changing and why I'm disappointed with this 2024 draft it forgot where we are coming from man kii mu ngi wax content bi man ridaaguma content bi to an extent pour xam ne lii lañ fa change ak yooyu man I am more interested in a process in the mindset in what is influencing that maa ngi dégg arguments naan we have a presidential system after independence we had a parliamentary system in 1982 lañ njëkk a elect president directly it changes society bi dafa change evolve as you behave that people cannot make that decision or changes would not help people to move forward political structure is what the people want and you have to bring political structure that reflects what the people want loolu mooy joxe legitimacy loolu mooy joxe this consensus that we want to do man fu ma daanelee mooy ne Parliament, cabinet did all that they are supposed to do, and people have protested. Protest nañ wane nañ lan lañ naka lañ mere ak yooyu noonu nag But the constitution is going where? To the people's house.
To the people's house. And
they have their elected people, but this is our house. So how do we ensure that the elected representatives, they go with the messages that like Limbuga? And that's where community people send village at the village level. Let them send bopa ñu organize community meeting, ñu organize ñu order send national assembly member bi mu ñëw mu explain la constitution bi wax ak ban cadre ak ban lifin la moo jël. Loolu dafa war a cost xaalis. Ñi am nañ moto. The idea of the motor, the car was for this. And right now kenn du mun a woon ne mënut a dem fenn because they have car, they have fuel, and they should be able to go and consult with everybody.
Si kaw loolu tamit askan wi jox nañ leen constituency development fund. 400,000 bu gaay di receive na si gaay génne ay xaalis ñu dem consult ak public assembly ñu mun si
waxtaan oo naan civil society kay lay organiser ñu loolu dafa war a jeex de. This is their job. Let them go use their vehicles, use luñ leen nit yi jox ñu dem waxtaan ak askan bi. Ñu recently we were in a community, you know, and everybody, if you see those names, they come out and say as if they are the ones representing their people. They are not seen even in their communities. And right now is an opportunity for you to build consensus in this country. This country is being polarized. You get divide every day. You don't judu deka bi meluto ni. Tay so wahe sa santa sa problem la si deka bi ni. So if you wahe dara sa nga laka sa problem la si deka bi. What is that? Deka bi dañ ko wara build. Ñun su fekkee ne bu ñoo dudé ñu ñu yéré ñu magé ñu united. This is an opportunity we build peace in this society, and the constitution should be for that. Rather than, you know, is it divisions you unnecessarily waste time.
ñu ngi gëna blame civil society. Dafa am ñi nga xamné ñu ngi ci media bi dañoo pick one thing wax ko nako ta misinform nit ñi. Man this week last start di am interview ak media house about the constitution. Because bam génné dama tok last week mid last week la jéxal review with my staff. Tok ne a week plus ñu ngi review and the comparison of these two documents ndax ñu mëna am lu nga xamante suñu génné dañ ci mëna wax. We have to speak with facts, we have to speak with evidences. So yeneen saa dañ dee wooy suufi sa la ngeen yeneen saa boobu mistake leen di def ñu dem rek commencé wax ñu misinform people. So loolu tax ma ne suma staff ne leen toog everyone ñëpp review and then understand. After my talk, when pare review, what do you guys think? It's not as bad as people are making this constitution look like. Although there are bad, proposed legislations, it's a draft. And it's like any other. Even government, they made a mistake in this 2024 draft. So still, because all I said no, I'm not looking at delete from the 2020 draft. It will be restored. It wasn't oversight. Yeah, oversight. So even season referencing, you make nyunsun bopa. Yenen nakatuda findings in depth. They made those mistakes. So lagi, man luma neka di wah nengi rek. Kono ko bahe nye protest nenen government lugay yon bugay yel. Why as a nation, what do we want?
What's the way forward?
Si walum constitutional reform. Do we want to because the government took this route is bad? That's true. But is the constitution bad at all? Like no good in it?
Of course there are.
So government is not supplying electricity, but still people
exactly. You know, you increase the fee sa electricity.
It is still
what we have to look is the long term. Right? To the risk. And I will say this here. Any government moving what? It will not give the people the constitution that they want 100%. Because there is politics. Man fila
parties are
disagree. Mari evidence who make conversation ak mom. Fila they disagree ak mom. This is the process somehow is political. Mom, the foreign is not be political, but it's political in a sense. Even UDP and NPP, there were certain things in the 2020 draft that they were not in agreement with. Let's say, for example, the disclosure of the accounts of political parties. I remember the leader of the UDP saying the government doesn't give us subvention, so that should not be in the constitution. But the CRC put it in the constitution. You understand? The NPP removed that in this 2024 draft, meaning they are all in agreement.
Now on that, yes.
That's welfare agreement, right?
So you will never have a constitution agreement, right?
Interest
so we have to, as a citizen, That's unfortunate. We have taken this process, a political process for that matter. The People's Constitution is in fact, it's not a people's constitution. Not everyone in the Gambia agreed with the 2020
draft.
Because there is one proposed legislation in the 2020 draft, the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Especially the right to life. Definitely, no one should be deprived of their life. However, anyone whose life has been taken in the exercise of force by the security officers, maybe run from prison, and they exercise force in that person, if that person dies, that person should not be considered as someone else whose life has been deprived. Now, what is the risk in there? Knowing our security personnel, jël someone else's life and they justify it. Well, 2024, dafa completely. So, the position that the 2024 draft is taking, whosoever's life is taken, the person should be taken to the courts.
Yeah.
But the 2020 draft was not having that. It has, a subsection that has an exception. And there shouldn't be an exception for anyone's life who is taken.
But if I hear you properly, you know, man yana def assessment. Man defa guma ko de man ma waga man mom
2 weeks ba lagi ma.
Like am na ñoo xamne dinañ ko def. Man I am just waiting for the process. Man hanga lu nekk dafa am ko xamne lo nga de am interest. So man why I know what I have interest in and people are nekk di focus.
Yeah.
Because then when you were talking, ma ngay hol ne in the 2020 it was more, you know, saying niti li mo ne concern problem. And therefore, you know, let's put the people first. But the 2024 is kind of like a balancing it in a sense where there should be governance. And how governance should work, lulu len ko wara balance. But if I'm hearing you properly, you know, this is the two different things.
No, absolutely. But nga hold at the other part, right? The issue of marriage, the Christians, the Muslims, everyone, including the political party, they say that it should be clear in the document that marriage is between a man and a woman only.
Yes.
But you know, CRC bagay the phone send draft and people review that wasn't there. Right? When the final draft, still it wasn't clear. Even though the position in the CRC is very similar to that of 1997. Why jamono daf di dox. Right? Lu gaay di wax borom ñaari tour yi ñu ngi fess ci dëkk bi. Légui society bi ñu ne bëgguñu loolu. But if you look at the 2024 draft, dafa ñëw mu ne only marriage between a man and woman shall be recognized as marriage.
Wow.
So mu dëgëral ko. So moo tax ma ne la am na yu si baax, am na yu si bon, waaye nañu nit jël seen time ñu def comparison. Am na yeneen sax 2024 draft yi dafa gën a give clarity. For example, in the 2020 draft, in terms of elections, dafa ne the president election should take place
3 months.
No, dafa ne at least 6 weeks before the end of the presidential term. The 2024 draft, dafa ne within 3 months, but not less than 6 weeks. So there's a clarity, in more clarity in that. So moo tax ma ne leen nañ ñi take seen time ñu read.
Citizen loolu la war a def.
Waaw nañ leen read lu si baax 2020 bu jàlloon sax dina am amendments. Issue of marriage, there was going to be amendment.
And citizenship.
But man 2020 bi sax when I look at our survey again in terms of people ñoo xam ne dañ agree of National Assembly rejecting that, su fekkee da nga ko xayma in terms of population, if ñu agree with the National Assembly was almost 30%. And 30% to come out, you need at least 75%. You know, and so 30% is dafa des. So there could be, but
the majority of that was about marriage.
Yeah, marriage, and that's not at this time. That you heard the social conversation. Man hulo na fe Christians, hulo na fe Muslim, hulo na fe kunega, because of the way that people were taking this secular conversation to be. It was the experience of Jame, why, you know, the way they look at it and division boom is and the fear was of this marriage issue. And now you don't hear them. Now you don't hear that, but there are other issues, maybe possibly, you know, both Christians and Muslims have to look at it. But at least, you know, you can see. For me, I feel like they said, let's give it a chance. And you know, the process is not like they've drafted it and it's going to go straight to the people. Parliament will spend time. After Parliament, if they don't do what the people want, and if it pass to referendum, we determine mun nañu xoolaat constitution bi and see lan lañ si bëgg mu fa wala nekku fa, and we still gonna vote. ñun ñoo amee suñ vote. If suñu su excès suñu. But what we supposed to do right now is to ensure that you pressure these people to ensure that mu excès suñu. Not let su fekkee ne ñun ñoo ko rey sax, let it come to us. That is the message that we should be
send
pushing.
it to the people. Don't send it back to sender. Send it to us.
Send it to us. Now you change your position, huh?
Well, that's what you say. I won't translate. I won't translate. I'll still go back and think about it. But you know, I'm kind of convinced today. You know, after this conversation, I'll go back and.
But when you're building a country,
yeah,
you need to, as much as you learn from the past, you need to think about the future.
Okay.
Parce que di nga am xale yoo xam ne juddoo guñ. ñoo xam ne xamaaguñ dara. What kind of future do you want your grandchildren to live in? ñun loolu lañ war a commencé di design tey. waaye nekkul ne man maa bugga lii buggalale di xëccoo ñun ñëpp ñoo xam ne dañoo géra fii ñeneen ñooy ñëw. And even what we are doing might not be necessary. So futuristic thinking, that's what every citizen should be doing. And ñun léegi problème bi fu ñu ko war a starté mooy si family level bi. And the problem is society. If the family is not strong, society would not be strong. And we cannot be government everywhere. And I saw that, I have to say that. Because the killings, it's not group of bandits coming in. People know how many. And that is not what the police do when it comes to those things. So society is decaying, change, and people are not talking. And we have to fix the society. But if we don't fix the society, we will not.
Yeah. Doctor, what completely like what's final message to the Gambian people? It seems like what I've got from this panel is, let's look at it with a critical mind and say 2024 or the 1997. We throw that back to the people. Look at it from that angle. What is good in the 1997 against what we have on the 2024? Do we still want to stay there, or do we believe we can move? What is your final message?
No, I mean, I think definitely going back to 94, it's definitely would be a step back. Would be a step back. I agree with him. Like, I think again, the point is not that we are expecting a perfect constitution. No, this one, my position is clear on it. It was done in bad faith. We shouldn't have expected anything better. But we should try all our best to improve it. Even if no improvement occurs in this, at least it is a step forward in the sense that it enables the Gambian government, the Gambian people in 2026 to be put in a situation to make a decision on it about which new government will come in to give us a real transition. We've had a stalled transition. We've never had a real transition. Let's see what we can do. So even if it passes, it's not because it's good enough. No, it's like we know it's bad. Its bad features are glaringly bad, but we have one should vote for. One should allow it to go, not because you think there are better things in it, but because at least come 2026, there are features in there that enables people to make make changes. Going back to 97, that becomes a bit more difficult. Yes.
Marr, for to be what to begin. Hayo mom from the do forget that. Because constitution bi mom di war nañ ci
ñom ñoy kilifa constitution bi ñom ñoo stand the whole.
We get a lot of my shows on this because
we can continue having the conversation, honestly speaking, but I think what I will close this my statement with will be loi yàlla rek moo perfect, right? And that is going to be here for the longest time. It's not going to change. te dafay ànd ak jamono bu nekk. ñun suñu loi bi nag dañ ko day change mu ànd ak jamono. tey constitution bi nii sax su nekkoon dafa 100% perfect, just like how NPP, UDP and all the political parties want it. jamono su demee ba commencé di change, guys didn't change constitution, even though it was the people that wanted that constitution. So it is a process. Let's start with something else better. than the 1997 constitution. And with amendment, if we amend by agreeing as political leaders and parliamentarians, if we amend this constitution, and my position is the deletions from the 2024, example, the chapter 5, that everyone is talking about, oh, why would they take that? Everyone, yes, is saying that that should be maintained. And I listened to the minister. He has given a genuine justification, even though I'm not in agreement with certain, answers that he has given. And the justification is right. However, what they could have done is to reduce, right, the sanctions. For example, issue of being disloyal or dishonest. And there's potential of you being sanctioned to never serve in the government. And he's right that dishonesty is subject to different interpretation. So what they could have done was to edit that part, just like they have edited other parts, and reduce the sanctions. So Parliament can do that.
Problem bi mooy dafa mel ni ñi buñ doon edit li dañ xool seen bopp lépp loo xam ne daf leen affect from that leadership thing. Minister am na jot pour xool ne lii mun nañoo affect every little thing loo xam ne rek moom mun na leen a xont génnee nañ ko. The mindset bi gars yi amoon biñ doon edit lii loolu moo taxoon ñu jëloon independent people CRC pour ñu defar constitution bi because xam nga nit ki soo nekkee si position tey boo ne media house yi nga jox facture seedool diggante media houses yi dina xaw a tuuti am biasness towards mine because that's me. I want my baby to grow more than any other. So loolu dafa di nekk loolu moo dee tax nga dee xool ay nit ñoo xam ne at least even though kenn perfect ñoom tam am nañ issues because am na fuñ bokka waaye amuñ a lot of stake like government has.
You're absolutely right.
Now ñoom man suma biggest issue mooy cabinet génnee nañ leadership lii bi completely and the argument in as much as mun ngaa understand why ñoom they seem to be protecting themselves génnee nañ fi ñoo declare seen assets soo ko ay excuse ale pour ñoom excuse ko pour député yi ak judge si waaye yow sa boppa ngay xool soo xoolee number also excuse nga sa boppa ne confirmation président dafa war a am powers anything that has to do with the executive dañ ko xool ak ñetti bët why any other person it doesn't matter.
Now Parliament.
That's my problem.
Now Parliament
It's my problem.
To just qualify.
It was done in bad faith.
To qualify what you said.
Yeah.
Being someone that have reviewed the constitution, majority of all the amendments done in that 2024 draft is under the executive, the chapter executive. Majority, all the others have been touched. Why it took us 2 to 3 days to review that chapter, the executive.
Yeah.
So, Mota constitutional building should not be done in a biased way.
Yeah.
So, ñoom kon nako waxe loolu la gaa doon set. So,
from their image.
Yeah.
loolu mo fofu mo nekk
the biggest problem.
The others, di nga gis yeneen yi sax powers yi dañ ko maintain. For example, local government yi.
Yes.
Right? Devolution of powers. Boobu gaa yi génne nañ ko. So, waaye tamit am na beneen ambiguity boo xool si 20 dafa ne the state the organ of state, right? You change to the executive because the organ of state, 2020 draft constitution, the defined organ of state as the executive, judiciary, and legislature. You understand?
Yeah.
So, ñoom fu dem organ of state, si walum local government, go change to the executive.
Yes.
You understand? Why devolution of power, that should not happen. Why put the suma, I'm not time bangé dem. Pour dana suma kaddu, luma nekk di wax mooy. Sun kon nu ma ko doon waxee rek loi yàlla rek moo perfect ñun sun loi every single time dafa change. Just 2 years ago ñu ngi am constitutional amendment sun loi every single time ñu ngi koy change. 2020 bi suñ ñëwoon ba tey dina am changes bu ñuy make. So as far as it's a dynamic process, right? The 2024 draft is a better version than the 1997 constitution. So nan parliamentarian talk ñu xool deletion from the 2024 yi nga xamante ne good in the 2020 draft ñu jël yooyu noonu ñu delloo ko waat yaa ngi understand. So yeneen yi nga xamante ne dafa bari coow si 2020 draft te it's still good ñu xool naka la ko gars yi di waxtaanee as people's representative, you make those amendments. You better the constitution. Duma wasa ñu perfect ko. Let them better it. You jox ko askan, let the people decide. So man foog na loolu la nekk di ñaax sun political leaders yi, loolu la nekk di ñaax parliamentarian, and for once political party wala parliamentarians nen baño don parliamentarian NPP, nen baño don parliamentarian UDP, because this is not the FGM wala this is not nakatuda. Wow, this is the constitution, the parent of all legislation in this country. So do not tamper with the constitution just because this is what Adama wants or this is what President Barrow wants, wala Honorable Dabo wants. What the people want, because ñooñu su gaay génne di nga ñi dina la xoote du la musa faate te xoolal député yi nga xamante génne leen ko fii nii am na ñoo xamante ne ban leen fi génne ñooñu évidence su ma leen gisee naa leen xoolee beneen boot ñu xuus tuuti rek ana ka moo fi doon ko this is a trash, this is Kenya constitution, this is bogus. Ana kooku tey di seen président Barrow moo ko génne.
Saf na proposal ba pare.
Saf na proposal waaye génne na ko sànni na fale sa yeneen morom jox na la compensation. So don't be myopic in decision making, especially core issues that affects the life of the people.
Waaw fu ma tijjee mooy si nit yi Marr wax na what political parties and everybody has to do. Lu ma wax nit yi rek moo nekk this country is our country. You understand? Sa dëkk nag sa dëkk la dekkuloo fi amuloo fi naka la paper wala lifin yëpp sa alal la. Lu fi baax ñun la, lu fi bon ñun la, am nañ constitution ñun la, amuñ constitution tamit ñun la. Leaders are there because of followers, of people, of citizens, and loolu lañ nekk pour defal pour def foofu noonu. But nañ fàttaleku fan lañ nekk di jógee. And I also talk to a lot of young people because fii léegi dëkk bi daanaka almost 70% young people ñoo fi nekk. Because it's also our life. If they could ping-pong in seen boppa fii nii, without clearly, setting the trajectory for this country, they are affecting our lives. Tey yaa ngi gis xale yi ñu ngi génn fii nii, ñu ngi dee si back way bi, ñu ngi leen a fata fii, fata fu nekk. Like these things have to change. And this is what was promised. And I think this is high time that people start having this engagement. Fu ma wax nit yi at the village level, fii man gisuma every village in this country du yaakaar koo xam ne jàng na fi dara. Every village, we all come from villages.
nañ génn WhatsApp de. Man suma maam every day mu ngi si WhatsApp.
ñu ngi si WhatsApp bi ñu ngi si fu nekk.
YouTube. Waaw dëkk bi xam.
They are aware.
Hey, Allah banko iko constitution yep dégg nañ.
Yes, they know.
So everything we see, it goes direct to them.
They know what it is there. So xam nañ loolu and therefore what we have to do moo nekk ñu engage leen. And so at every level, at the family level, let's discuss it. Loolu la nit yi war a def noonu la ñëw build society. Waaye nekkul fii nii rek ñu ñëw si social bi ku nekk di lifin comme lu mu doon wax from the beginning. Réew man suma maas yi ma mënuma wax inside léegi ba clearly parce que rédaaguma. Waaye ñoo xam ne dañ dégg ne kii ne dana tël moto bi dama na nañ ko bàyyi. People need to avoid that. State building dafa require nit yi talk around the table. ñuy discourse di waxtaan.
Kenn oote gul de.
waaye di oote dinañ oote di. ñu di ñëw yow sa
balaa mu dem assembly.
yow sa kii rek ngay xaar ñu invite la su añ pare.
ma de o kaja dafa ko no pare.
jeex na léegi wax nañu ne añ bi pare na. so suñ toon la pour ñu dem lekk nañ leen dem lekk.
nañ dem lekk.
waaw foofu
añ bi lum naxari di nga gis ku lekk bu ne so biir fees na waaye kaani bi saf na.
baax na daal.
I think this is it. Let's have the conversation and engage our NAMs. I think the more we engage our NAMs, the better look, it doesn't matter. Even man, I don't support it. I'll have to still engage my national assembly member and tell them how I feel. That way, more no, but li. Simple. That's where the conversation should start. And I think I still take it back to the civil society. Let's engage. Because political parties, as we see, dafa melni ku nekk jël na position. The civil society lañ dee gis as the neutral party in this. So if they lead the conversation, mun naa am dina am lu ñu leen bàyyil yéen xam nga.
Gaay rusul ñu defuñu dara ñu dañ leen a pour in the interest of the country ñi ne ñu bugg a country bi ñëw ñeneen ñi duñ ñëw. da nga leen fii Fatou gis nga fii
bu leen give up.
political parties yi seen boppa non xaaral ma wax la dara non waaye political parties yi seen boppa am nañ IPC interparty committee de quite a lot ñoom dañ si ñooñu nag foofu invite leen boobu mooy seen civil society ñoom tamit bring them that is their civil society invite leen Let them look at how, because ñoom ñoo war a organize parties yi ñu commencé di look at the constitution. Lu tax naka ñoom IPC, let them do that. Am nañ women wing, am nañ youth wing, am nañ children wing, children wing amaago waaye am nañ all wings at the regional level ñooñu tamit dañ si war a bokk.
dama foog ne yéen a gën a am doole si.
du ñun rek du ñun ba pare civil society tamit buñ si parti trade union si. Gambia Teachers Union
yéen fan ngeen war a doole.
xarama lista la ñëpp rek nga indaal ñu.
Madi ngeen war a doole.
Non Madi suñu oncle la.
Oncle Madi.
See, Madi is my favorite person.
Oncle Madi is Madi. Kenn du mun a change Madi. So unfortunately yeneen saa Madi su waxee dañ dee wane civil society. So ñun
Madi is one man soldier. Madi is one man soldier. Madi doesn't need organization pour mu mun a lifin. Madi moo ñu yor yëpp. Dafa open civil society léegi. Madi is a one man soldier.
ñu ne gars understand it. Nga ñun Madi civil society daf ñu day grill. Suñu plateforme
Madi is general. It's everywhere.
Waaw Madi bàyyul kenn man su ma méegee about this constitution Madi daf maa ñëw dina ma war.
Everybody.
That's the next Madi. Moo tax nag government ak political parties. Dañ xam ne nekkul ñoom rek Madi is not only hard on them ñun ñoo si gën a sonn.
Everybody, yeah.
ñun ñoo si gën a sonn.
Everywhere.
The unfortunate thing mooy Madi su waxee dina civil society but that's not the position of civil society. Kon for example te lu position bu mu jël si Tangara nekkul the same position. Civil society. So that is always dafa nekk rek yàlla dafa ko may that level of influence.
ba pare moo ñu yar ñun ñëpp.
moo ñu yar.
moo ñu protect fii under dictatorship Madi nañ ko war a waxal. ñun man fii bu ñu ma arresté Madi mu ma lijjantil xam nga fu ma nekk Madi Toura nekk mu lijjantil ma génn and that's what Madi Jobaate was doing in this country when nobody was looking. When nobody was looking that's what he was doing. And fii Madi kenn du ko mun a tere mu war a wax lu mu war a wax pour dëkk bi. You know, and so the issues yéen ay comme waxante wax la dafa speak man you disagree but that's what it is.
So mun doo mun a bu disagree ak Madi du la musa mere.
du musa wala dafa tallu xam nga man noonu laa xamee Madi. Madi social media disagreement fekk xaw ma ko sax su ñu am benn programme ma seen conversation mu ne are you that kid fekk maa ngi gën a nekk xale that kid that is always attacking me on Facebook ma ne ko ma ne okay I'll come. That's how I got to know Madi until today. Why every now and then dina ma call dinañ waxtaan. So that's just Madi. yaa ngi understand yenn saa da nga ko dee bëgg a koo nga wax Madi noonu waaye su jëlee position ba mu jeex na.
You can debate him. You can debate.
And he will come to that debate and listen to you. That's the good thing about it.
ñun soo gisee ñu bëri wax tey because ñun we also dañu race comme ñun ñoo jiitu ñu comme civil society but ñun du Madi like John Jai John you know there are people ñoo xam ne dañu race and they race us not in a way boo xam ne dañ leen war a ragal but they race us in a way boo xam ne we are equal and we have to engage them in equal terms you know and that is very important for koo xam ne dafa interested in building the future it's not interested in just ne man maa fa nekk rek tey and that's what people need to start thinking now you have to build others so that continue. Next time
next time feel like in Madi you want to see constitution because Madi needs to come. I'm not gonna come. You should bring Madi but I'll definitely bring him because from the name of from the knee say constitution me every day so go ahead but thank you so much Sait. Thank you doctor always you know obviously Sait. And happy belated birthday, Sait. Sait mom dafa def birthday look sax.
Kotu mom tay mom suma kotu to duma ega ken. So I have to cut.
That is good. You put like pressure. But thank you so much guys and to the technical team and all of you watching. Good night to you all. We'll be back again. It's the constitution. You'll keep speaking. Let's engage. I think that's the way forward. Good night to you all. See you again. Bye-bye.
We are happy to announce the launch of our new logo. We have evolved since our incorporation in 1997, and it is time to refresh our new look to reflect who we are today. Before I reveal our new look, however, walk with me while I take you through our journey of the last 25 years. Trust Bank was incorporated on July 3rd, 1997, and began operations on October 1st, 1997. Following the collapse of the parent company of its predecessor, Meridian, the CBG stepped in and recapitalized the bank and held the shares in trust, thus the name Trust Bank. In 1999, the first investors who responded to the IPO and paid $1.50 per share received their maiden dividend of 50 bututs per share. In 2000, the bank fully So, we remain true to who we have always been. As we look forward to greater achievements, we are rebranding to reflect who we are today and the future that we inspire. Our new logo has been designed to visually demonstrate our Gambian heritage and the sophisticated nature of the bank. We are moving away from the navy and gold-colored parallelogram-shaped logo to our baobab tree with a rising sun in the background. The striking outline of a baobab tree at sunrise is a familiar sight to anyone who has spent time in the Gambia. Our new logo and visual identity are inspired by our core values and spirit of being a pioneer in providing a unique banking experience. It is a completely new look that better matches the transformation we have made as a company. But we remain your trust bank. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to present to you our new logo and corporate identity.